Okay, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the June 14th Board of Selectmen's meeting. I'd like to stand and take the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Well, good evening, everyone. First, it's a pleasure to see the entire board here in person without masks. Nice to see you all and your faces. And Doug and Courtney, we've done this so many times on Zoom. This seems a little foreign. First item on the agenda is our approval of the minutes. May 10th, 2021 is the first set. Any questions, comments, corrections?
I just have a question on the May 10th minutes. Usually you announce those present, and the board, usually you announce the Board of Selectmen, but they're not appearing. It lists everyone else who was present from the Finance Committee and the attorney and everything else, but the Selectmen weren't listed.
Yeah, and I think this
And I
was
think we're
actually
all
done
present.
in person, so because it wasn't Zoom, we didn't have to do that. I think that's the reason for it.
Oh, because I thought we usually announce who's present.
Yeah, I think the requirements are, Courtney or Doug, you can correct me, I think the requirements are, if you're using Zoom, you have to announce everyone who's present on the call, if it's an official
But I
Zoom
thought they
meeting.
should appear in the minutes, though. That's my,
Oh, okay.
You usually include.
yeah.
Sorry, I misunderstood. With that correction, any other questions?
Make a motion to approve the minutes of May 10th, 2021.
Thank you.
Second.
Motion is second. Any further discussion?
And
Courtney, whoop, go ahead,
Yep,
Andrew.
quick question, is that as amended?
As amended.
As amended with the addition of
Second.
those who were present?
As amended with the second. Courtney, would you poll the board, please?
Selectman Claiborne?
Yes.
Selectman Contos?
Yes.
Selectman DeBoer?
Yes.
Selectman Dolder?
Yes.
Chairman Becker?
Yes. Next item is the June 3rd regular session meeting minutes. Questions, corrections?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of June 3rd, 2021.
Second. Motion is second. Any further discussion? Courtney, would you poll the board, please?
Selectman Claiborne?
Yes.
Selectman Contos?
Yes.
Selectman DeBoer?
Yes.
Selectman Dolder?
Yes.
Chairman Becker?
Yes. Under new business, our first item is a public hearing. I will entertain a motion to open the public hearing.
I'll make a motion to open the public hearing.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to open the public hearing. This is the National Grid, is listed on our agenda. Any questions? Courtney, would you poll the board, please?
Selectman Claiborne?
Yes.
Selectman Contos?
Yes.
Selectman DeBoer?
Yes.
Selectman Dolder?
Yes.
Chairman Becker?
Yes. And on the phone with us, we have Rebecca Marks. Can you hear us, Rebecca?
Hello?
Yes. Hi, Rebecca. This is,
I'm not sure. I called in on my cell phone too, so I'm not sure if you can hear me on my cell phone or I can mute it on the computer.
okay, we can hear you good right now, so that's great. So thanks for being with us. We've opened our public hearing. This is a request to approve National Grid's request to install 2 JO poles and remove 1 JO pole on Lower Gore Road, beginning in a point approximately 775 feet southeast of the center line of the intersection of Upper Gore Road and continuing approximately 15 feet in a southerly direction. Install a new 40 Class 2 pole, paren P57, close, to replace the existing P57 for a new service to a new house at 190 Lower Gore Road. Install P57-50 as a mid-span pole to compensate for a long existing span. And just for the record, this is at the intersection of the Lower Gore and Upper Gore closest to Douglas. It's not the first one coming off 16. It goes all the way up to, if you're heading to the Douglas, the back road. Do we have anyone in the audience or anyone online that wishes to make a comment about this?
I can't hear you.
Okay, Rebecca, we're just asking if anyone from the public has any comments. Can you hear that?
Oh, okay.
Okay. Hearing no comments from,
I
Okay, yep, hearing no comments from the public, we have all the information in our package. Any questions of Doug or Courtney with regards to this request?
I'll make a motion to approve the request from National Grid.
Yeah, I think we're gonna, we'll close the hearing, I
Oh,
think,
yeah.
first. There being no questions, I'll entertain a motion to close the hearing.
Motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Motion is second, any discussion? Courtney, would you poll the board, please?
Selectmen Claiborne?
Yes.
Selectmen Contos?
Yes.
Selectmen Gabor?
Yes.
Selectmen Zoldan?
Yes.
Chairman Becker?
Yes. And now we'll entertain a motion to approve the request as written.
I'll make a motion to approve the request from National Grid as written.
Second.
Okay, motion is second, any further discussion? Courtney, would you poll the board, please?
Selectmen Claiborne?
Yes.
Selectmen Contos?
Yes.
Selectmen Gabor?
Yes.
Selectmen Zoldan?
Yes.
Chairman Becker?
Yes. For Rebecca, for your information, we're now going to take up the second request, and we'll look to open a public hearing on the second request.
I make a motion that we open a public hearing on a request to install one JO pole on Upper Gore Road.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? Courtney, would you poll the board, please?
Selectmen Claiborne?
Yes.
Selectmen Contos?
Yes.
Selectmen Gabor?
Yes.
Selectmen Zoldan?
Yes.
Chairman Becker?
Yes. And again, here, we are now in a public hearing. Do we have anyone from the public, either in person or online, that would like to make a comment on the poll location? Okay. Hearing none, any questions from any of the Board of Selectmen or anyone in the audience? Okay. Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
A motion and a second to close the public hearing, and simply for the record, it is a request to approve National Grid's request to install one JO pole on Upper Gore Road, beginning at a point approximately 20 north of the center line of the intersection of Gore Gable Drive, install new sub 5-84 with anchor for pole-to-pole guy. The existing tree guy from P5 needs to be removed. So that is the actual description of the work, and this is the work that's going to happen at the first intersection of Lower Gore Road and Upper Gore, about 200 yards or so up the road on to Gore Gable Road, Gore Gable Drive. Any further discussion on the hearing? Courtney, would you poll the board to close the hearing, please?
Selectmen Claiborne?
Yes.
Selectmen Contos?
Yes.
Selectmen Gabor?
Yes.
Selectmen Zoldan?
Yes.
Chairman Becker?
Yes. All right, the hearing is now closed. Any questions or comments on this particular request? Okay. Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the request as submitted.
I'll make a motion to approve the National Grid request to install one JO pole on Upper Gore Road.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Courtney, would you poll the board, please?
Selectmen Claiborne?
Yes.
Selectmen Contos?
Yes.
Selectmen Gabor?
Yes.
Selectmen Zoldan?
Yes.
Chairman Becker?
Yes. Rebecca, if you can hear us, that I think takes care of our business. Okay, thanks for attending.
All right, thank you very much. Have a good night.
Okay, bye-bye now.
Bye.
All right, next item on the agenda is the Personal Advisory Board report, highlight of the evening. And for the record, we have Elaine Davies, who, for the record, is my sister-in-law. So Elaine, I'll let you take it away. I know we've received a report from the Personal Advisory Board. Really appreciate all the work that's been done on that. If you'd like to go through and maybe highlight the report for us?
Yes, I will.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone, and on behalf of the Webster Personnel Advisory Board, I want to thank you for asking us to share the results of our recent review of the town's personnel policies and their implementation. I'd like to recognize members of the board present today, and it's Pat Nectow, who's sitting behind me, and I hope watching TV are Sarah Sansom, Josh Sterzala, Candace Shivers, and Steve Raymond. I saw your agenda. I know you have a long night ahead of you, so what I'd like to do is make some brief remarks focusing on a few of our observations and recommendations. What's most important to us is to get your feedback. We are going to meet soon. I'm not sure exactly, because we thought we were going to meet on Friday, but now we know we can't.
I'm sorry, my watch is going off. I can't stop it. It's from the Webster Public Schools. It accidentally hit the thing, so I'm sorry.
That makes me feel so much more comfortable, I guess.
It won't stop either.
Okay, what's important is to get your feedback, and when we have our next meeting, we'll be discussing it, and we're looking for future areas for our attention. So, I spent 30 years as a government civil servant and as a executive manager and an employee, and that taught me that people are your best asset. If you want a government organization that serves citizens, you make sure that your managers and your employees know where they fit and why their work is important, what they have to do, how they're going to be held accountable, what kind of support you can give them, and assurance that they're treated fairly. 4 years ago, when the Personnel Advisory Board was reconstituted and Doug Willardson began his tenure with us, there were few pieces of this type of a comprehensive human resources system in place. The good news from our review is that now there is. There are personnel policies, a classification plan, position descriptions, new hire information, all of these things exist. There are, however, opportunities for enhancement in these areas and improvement, and I want to focus on a few of those areas. First topic, performance evaluation. There is nothing that strikes more terror in the hearts of managers and employees than the word evaluation. And that's probably why today's practitioners now refer to it as performance development. There is a system laid out in the personnel policies, but it's not been implemented, although Doug has a pilot program underway right now. Most of the people we spoke with equated it with giving everyday work assignments and discussing them. But it's really more than that. It's showing a person how he or she supports the town goals. It looks at how to do things better and more efficiently, looks at training needs, educational opportunities. And it should be a very positive experience. We recommend that this area be given a priority this year. And we hope that by the end of the year, there will be performance standards in place and people will have had discussions of both a mid-year and a final year. And we think the system can be adapted once you have some experience with it. And we're willing to help with ideas on coaching and guidance. Second, succession planning. Really important, often overlooked. Doug's begun the process of looking at key positions and changes in work and personnel in the future. But from what we heard, we really recommend that the town consider hiring a human resources person. And it could be a sharing relationship, maybe with the school system, maybe with surrounding towns, but we don't have that expertise on board right now. And as a Webster citizen said to me about a month ago when I was standing on Main Street, we have a large budget, what is it, 50 million if you add the school system in, but we don't have someone who can help us ensure that we know the laws and the best practices, and there's nobody to help support on HR. So we really think we should look at that, and we hope that you will. There's other crucial areas like information management to address rapid technological change. Third, emergencies. The policy document covers weather events. We are really good at snow. But clearly, at a minimum, it's got to be expanded to cover what we've learned over the last year with the pandemic. Things like the telecommuting policy and furloughs. And I'm going to go out on a limb because I've worked in this field at the federal level before. I think it's time for the town to look at emergencies and the long-term impact. Specifically, continuity of operations, continuity of government. And that covers a lot of things, not just personnel. It covers the legal underpinnings we have to act. It covers alternative sites. It covers order of succession, essential work and people communication. All of it worked out ahead of time, not in the middle of the emergency. And we're being told there's going to be more pandemics and in the future, and although I think I'm more concerned about a tornado coming back, knocking out the town hall, and then we're in deep trouble. This is more broader than the PAB. We would have a piece of it, we'd be happy to help, but I urge you to think about setting up a group that would look at our experience over the last year across all of the town organizations. And finally, this item came up as the report was being written, and so the PAB didn't spend any time on it. But it came up in context of building and supporting the management team, encouraging them to share their expertise with one another, encouraging them to come together to help in problem solving where relevant, as well as different suggestions we had for coaching. So I want to point something out. This is your organizational chart. See all the lines? Visually, this is probably a better chart. This shows where they report.
Yeah.
Carol, I'm not sure if you can get that on the screen. If we have a wide enough lens for that.
I'll leave it for you. They all, of course, report to the town administrator. And this is one of the most flattened organizations I think I have ever seen, with about 14 direct reports, 15, something like that. And I think it's difficult to be a senior executive whom you're all holding responsible for developing goals, promoting economic development, ensuring that the financial, the water, the highway, the police, et cetera, systems work. And with that many direct reports, it's difficult. So all I'm doing is calling this to your attention, and we, of course, on the Personnel Board would be happy to work with you if you want to pursue anything in this area. Now, there's plenty more in the report on onboarding, the guidance itself, position descriptions, which we firmly believe it's time to make sure they're updated this year, and it's a priority. So I urge you to take a look at the report if you haven't had a chance to do that yet. So I want to thank you for your time. I want to thank Doug for the support he's given to the board. I want to thank the members of the PAB who served past, present over the last 4 years, because they worked really, really hard on various documents. And since I have the floor, we're going to be saying goodbye to Steve Raymond, whose term ends at the end of June. And all of you out there watching, there's an opportunity to serve. So if any of you have some expertise in the area, please think of applying for the position. And it is a town moderator position, so I think you can contact Doug or Ted Apples. So that's all I have to say. Any comments?
Well, on that
Questions?
last point, Elaine, I think the town moderator
I was gonna
slash
say-
historical slash
Is he behind me?
now is on notice.
Oh, and there he is.
Elaine, thank you. As I said, thank you and the committee. You've worked for many, many years. I've got a lot of red marks, and a lot of them indicate talk to Doug with regards to the report. But I want to open up to the board for comments and questions, please.
I've got one question. Have we ever had a planned reorganization where we take a look at the function responsibilities of the different departments?
Since I'm a big comprehensive evaluating and restructuring, we have not done that. I think any structure we do will add more employees, so that's something that we've always been like a little hesitant to do, because as much as I would love to share my work with other people, it would require more people, and obviously that's more money. So we haven't done it yet. It's something we could certainly look at and then maybe put an ideal plan and eventually get to it, but we haven't done it.
Yeah, Andrew, you've probably got the most longevity with this board.
That may be something to look at. I know within the next few years, we'll probably be coming up on when we're due to update our master plan for the town, and that would be a good fit to also look at that, because when you do the master plan, that's going to help give you guidance for if you need to change the town charter, any bylaws.
Yeah, so to Carol's point about direct reports and succession planning, things like that, if we were to, ideally, we'd have like a community development officer, and they'd handle all the things that were associated with the building department, health, conservation, whatever, so that would kind of be a level between me and those department heads. On the finance side, we kind of have moved in that direction with Tim being the town accountant and finance director. And so now the treasurer and the assessor kind of work through him. And then we'd probably also have a DPW director type employee that the highway, water and sewer would kind of work through. So those were 3 high-level positions that would, that's $300,000-ish that we would have to fit into the budget somewhere if we wanted to do that. So that's the main reason we haven't.
Yeah, I think, one of the things to me would be to look at other towns, and we may find that our flat organizational structure is very similar to our surrounding towns, but, it is worthwhile looking at. There does seem to be in here I won't call it a cry out for an HR person, but I know, Doug, you came from Grafton, where I think your responsibilities as, assistant town manager included HR. So that, I think, is something that, our board needs to talk certainly with Doug about, which may then allow us to deal with a number of the recommendations more pointedly, in this particular report.
I'd just like to thank you for the work that the board has done, and it's been needed in town for a long, long time. It's sort of been, you've brought it up to where it kind of needs to be. There's still a lot of work to be done, but I'm wondering, on the evaluation side and as far as the job descriptions, do you think that might be combined to kind of evaluate the job at the time of the evaluation and kind of...
Yeah, you definitely need the position description so people know what they're supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
But performance standards go beyond that you should be able to see where you fit into the system, what the goals are that how your work fits in.
I'm just trying to see how it can be done, like, in concurrent, do the evaluation and go over the job description and see how it can be tweaked and if it's accurate. And
there are many different ways to do it, and the guidance has example standards and things like that. Maybe it doesn't suit Webster, but at least Doug's doing, you're doing a project right now. We'll see what comes out of that, and maybe it needs to be changed, but just some emphasis on it.
Yeah, I think that collector-treasurer pilot is probably a great way to start looking at the descriptions along with the evaluations together. I know Doug has to go through an evaluation every year.
Yeah. So speaking of evaluation, I have done an evaluation of every department head except for Carol. She keeps reminding me of that. But we haven't ever had department heads really evaluate union employees formally. So that is what we are trying to do, the pilot. And we took the job descriptions and took every item in that and put it in the evaluation form, and we're going to rank you on 1 to 5 on all those things, and we're going to see how it goes. And I think Elaine said it well, that evaluation strikes a lot of fear in both the manager and the employee, and so we're trying to work through that and be like, it's not that bad. It's a good time to talk and maybe work out any issues if there are any.
Doug, will that have to be worked into a union contract?
Their contract allows for it.
Oh, it allows, okay.
To give them credit, they are willing and happy to do it. They recognize value in it. So there wasn't really much pushback.
Yeah, I think as Elaine in the committee report, talks about, it all starts with that job description. You can't have an evaluation, you can't set goals and performance without having that job description. So I know you all have done a lot of work on job descriptions as well. And I want to thank the managers too, our department heads who've been working with Elaine and the committee, because it is a lot of work, because we've never done this before.
And especially our thanks go to the ones who came and interviewed with us. It was exceedingly helpful.
I had to twist some arms to make that happen. They did not
I know.
want me.
Thank you, Doug.
I actually have a question, Elaine. I want to echo what Earl said and Randy as well, but very thoughtful, very comprehensive, very well done. I noticed in reading the report, the way that you verbally reported it, was that your priority order? because it was somewhat of a different order than the actual report. So I was wondering if the actual board itself had a priority order in terms of the way to go about this.
We didn't set a priority.
Okay.
But however, performance came up over and over and over and over again, so that's why I put it first.
Okay, because I numbered them as you went through, just to follow it, so I was wondering if that was a priority order.
Yeah, so it almost seems as though as I labeled them too, performance and position descriptions became number one as far as what you were describing, succession planning number two, emergencies number three, right? And
Yeah.
then management team number four. I think with regard to emergencies, I think this board should probably talk about creating some form of a committee. I know that Chief Hickey has done a very, very good job handling our emergencies, and Doug, you have done a great job with regards to COVID, and that was clearly an emergency, and we can use that as a template. But I too, like Elaine is pointing out, fear for a hurricane, not just a tornado, because a hurricane is broad to the entire, to the entire town. That did happen in June of 1960. And, what would happen if we lost power in this town for a week and we couldn't get electricity up? So that's we talked sometimes about a chemical car on the railroad tracks, and I know Chief Hickey has a plan for that, but it's a different kind of natural disaster, blizzard of 78, those kind of things that, and whatever else you could dream of in your nightmares with regards to emergencies. But I think that's possibly a good thing to do, to create a committee to work with Chief Hickey on this, and just talk it through. Another thing for Doug's
Safety
goals.
committee.
Yes.
We don't have anything else to do.
Doug's going to hate me then.
No, I actually, just the opposite. So Elaine, when she started her report, I was kind of amazed, like, the committee has done a lot of work. Yeah, because we didn't have any policies, and it was kind of like every time an issue came up, it was like, Courtney, how was this handled in the past? And so now we have a formal policy to follow, and those were some long meetings, so it was well worth it.
Anybody else? Tom, did you have?
Yeah, first of all, I thought this was well thought out, well done, and came up with a lot of great recommendations that hadn't been thought about 3 years ago. One question, was there any feedback from employees?
From the,
From employees?
no,
That was nothing.
we did not talk with any of the employees.
So you talked with department heads?
Just
but
the
not-
department heads, right. Part of the goal was finding out whether the policies were used, or they even knew it was on there. Was it on the shelf, and they were just taking it down and looking through it? So we,
Well, the nice thing is, they're obviously being used right now.
I think everyone now realizes that, the town is a business, and, it's a significant business, and we have to operate that way, and this will help us get down that path with regards to personnel matters and everything else in here, so.
And I think the suggestion of getting a dedicated human resources individual would also help Doug with achieving some of these milestones, especially performance evaluation, setting job descriptions, because if you have somebody who's dedicated to human resources, they may have broad experience from other towns, communities, and have an idea of what the industry standard is for descriptions and how different evaluation
And there's
systems work.
There's another opportunity for intercommunity, because every community is acting more and more like a business now, and needs to develop an HR scheme for their town, and maybe a shared community, multi-community position might.
Yeah, it would be nice to have some kind of intermunicipality agreement. I would say that it would be difficult if we aren't even doing this, I think, with the school within our own
Right.
town.
Right.
Maybe we would start looking there, but before we then moved on to talking with another town, it would be difficult to try and segregate, we want that person's time here in Webster, and Dudley wants that person's time, and there's probably not enough time in a day to service both. But those are the kind of things I think we need to work out. And Doug and I have talked about this in the past, in our private conversations as chair to town administrator, that this is an area that the town needs some help in, so.
Yeah, and we've had very extensive conversations with the school department, and I think their view and their needs were a little bit different than what we were seeing. And so it didn't really seem like it would work out, but yeah, maybe talking to another community or reassessing. That was in the middle of COVID where there were particular needs. Maybe those have somewhat been gone away, so we can try that again.
Could also work with CMRPC to see if they have any expertise in that area.
Yeah, and actually, that's a good resource. For any job or task that we're going to regionalize, going through CMRPC is a great way to do it.
Do any towns do any outsourcing with this as opposed to hiring someone?
So CMRPC has actually tried to, what they did was they got a human resources specialist that they kind of had on retainer. I actually don't know if they actually implemented it, but that was one of the options that multiple communities were looking at to see if it was available. The thing with that is you're charging kind of a consultant and you're paying a consultant rate, which would be 2 or 3 times more than if you're paying an employee.
But something on the idea of what we have on our agenda tonight with the the health services.
Yeah.
But, I just tend to think that when you're dealing in personnel matters, especially if you're dealing with personnel issues, it becomes a lot more complicated.
Yeah.
Elaine, thank you again.
Well, thank you, and we are here to help.
We used to hear that about the federal government. We're here from the federal government, we're here to help.
Well, I said that often.
Elaine, actually, do you mind staying in that chair for a little bit?
Yes, we have a policy, we'll bring this forward.
Okay.
Are we good on that topic?
Yes.
If we look down, we have it's on page 100 of our package, but the temporary remote working policy for extenuating circumstance. Maybe we can is that the one you want to take
Yeah,
up,
yep.
Doug? While Elaine's here?
So I'll just briefly introduce it. So as we were rethinking things because of the COVID changes that have happened in our world, one of the things that we have realized is that there are some employees that are able to work from home better than others, and that there are definitely circumstances in the world where having an employee work from home is much better for the organization and for the employee than an employee just taking time off or taking sick leave. So what we tried to do, what we have done is made a policy that would allow us for extenuating circumstances, allow an employee to work from home for a limited time to take care of, maybe it's a health issue, maybe it's a health issue of a family member, or it could be a myriad of different reasons, but we wanted to put some parameters on that so it wasn't abused, but we could also be willing and able to meet an employee's needs when they were having a difficult time in their life.
So Doug, I'm not sure if this has actually been through the Personal Advisory Board?
Yes, it
I think-
has, and
okay.
we looked at other towns, too. So we support it.
So we have it on it's about a 4-page document on page 100, starting in our packet. So any questions on that suggestion, recommendation for temporary remote working policy for extenuating circumstances?
One thing I'm concerned, I have an IT background, is the security of files and such that can be stored even through a VPN on a local computer. And I hope that we institute strong measures, and that is of great concern to me.
Yeah. And IT is not my specialty, but talking with Greg, the IT director, I mean, he certainly has concerns about it too,
Yeah.
but we have different ways that we could do it and have all the files and things stored here on our servers and accessed through a secure VPN rather than, people taking files and saving them on their computer or different things like that.
Right, but unless you have stops in place, that can be done.
Yeah, yeah.
So if those added measures are in place, then that's secure, but
Doug, do you know if he's talking about a secure a VPN to actually VPN to a physical desktop here?
Yeah, it would be that.
So they would be working on their local desktop within this building?
Yep, yeah.
I mean, you know, it is important to say that you've been doing this. I mean,
Yeah,
you've
we've
had-
done it for the last
right.
year, yeah.
You've done it throughout COVID, but I think those are very legitimate concerns. Again, that's something that we just put in the budget for additional security measures. It was a $50,000 line item in the budget, as we remember looking at it, because that is a concern. So I think Doug is aware, and I think Greg is very aware as well.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
you know, just to make sure. One of the things that I know happens at the place that I used to work, and I'm sure it still happens, is, you know, they go out and they hire a firm to go out and fish and test our employees to make sure that they're following the security policies. And I'm not sure if we have ever issued a type of a security reminder to our employees, but if we haven't, we should do that and then possibly start testing them to see if they're following that, because it's very easy to be tripped up, you know, by a phishing scheme. So that might be something to look at as well. Earl, that's a great point.
After the pandemic, there are just so many organizations now going to at least a hybrid model.
Okay, any other questions on the temporary remote working policy?
No.
No? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve that policy.
I'll make a motion that we approve the temporary remote working policy for extenuating circumstances.
Second.
Yeah, motion and a second. Any further discussion? Courtney, could you poll the board, please?
Selectman Claiborne?
Yes.
Selectman Contos?
Yes?
Selectman DeBoer?
Yes.
Selectman Shulda?
Yes.
Chairman Becker?
Yes. Thank you again, Elaine. Pat, thank you for coming by, and thanks again to the committee. Okay, jumping back up now, Mr. Avalos, you are next on the agenda, first item being the Webster Historical Commission. So thanks for coming in. One of your many hats.
Thank you all. Welcome back.
It's good to be back in person.
Yeah, I agree. Thanks for having me here tonight. My objective is kind of twofold. One is to bring you up to date on the Historical Commission, and the other is a specific project that we're working on right now. I want to say that we are in the process of reactivating a commission that has been kind of inactive for several years now. I haven't seen any activity or records beyond around 1982, 84, somewhere in that area. There might have been some semblance of a commission at that point, but I couldn't find any records of it. So we're in the process of reactivating, and that means basically starting from scratch. We do have a good base plan that was established back in the late 70s and early 80s, which includes a survey and an inventory of historical buildings and places and areas in our town. And it is a great start. So for us, we're looking to expand on that. And the way we're going to go about it is, number one, I think we're looking strategically to reorganize. We've got a good base right now of 4 or 5 members. We'd like to get to 7, which is what we are chartered to do. We're going to be having a strategic session, actually, the end of the month, on June 26th. The only day we could all members get together physically was a Saturday morning. So we did call for a Saturday morning meeting. It's going to be at the police station in the conference room. It'll be a 2-hour meeting. We're holding it from 9 to 11 to basically try to reorganize, get some strategic planning, put together a plan moving forward for the commission. A couple of areas that we're looking into there would, of course, include an up-to-date survey and an up-to-date plan. We tried to slide that into the budget this year, but unfortunately, it didn't pass muster. So we will be looking, though, to come back.
Giving the evil eye to the town administrator.
Well, I can tell you that.
It would be justified,
A survey will cost you 25 to 30,000.
and that's why.
And there's grant money out there. And last year, the grant process began in September. So we're looking to obviously apply for that this year and see if we can't get it. I don't know what their requirements are, and as we get closer to that date, we'll follow up with what it is. But we are kind of hoping that maybe by getting approval for a 50% grant, we can go to October town meeting and get, our half of the money to move forward with the survey. But I think it's very important for the commission to update it. They claim buildings that are 40 years old or more should be, looked at as possibilities for your survey, and it's been 40 years since we've done the survey, so I'm sure there
Almost
are
every
buildings
building in
out there
town,
that
right.
qualify. But
So, but
that's,
it's of historical significance, it's not just age,
absolutely,
right?
absolutely, yeah.
Ted, is this just, it's not just buildings, I mean, we have artifacts, we have cannons, we have, as I understand, I've never seen one, muskets from the Civil War, or not muskets, but rifles from the Civil War, I mean, bayonets and things. Does it incorporate all of just buildings and artifacts?
Basically, it is. I mean, the commission's responsibility really is to preserve the history of the town, and whether that be through buildings, parks, again, artifacts, historical signs, or other types of memorabilia. I know the Historical Society is a different entity, and they deal with, it's a different ballgame from what the commission is. The commission is really responsible for educating the town and then preserving the town. And I know in some instances, there are certain business owners or private owners who get a little nervous when we try, or a commission tries to establish that a building is historical, because then it puts limitations on what you can do with that building. And they include many things regarding the facade, regarding the brickwork or the structure. It literally could even come down to spray painting along the sides of buildings that are labeled historical. So, it can get a little complicated, but it isn't meant to hinder anyone, obviously. It's there to preserve a history in the town, that people can be proud of, and for the younger generations who might not have a history, to learn from that. And that is another goal of the commission, is to educate the residents, including our youngsters in the area, about the significance of holding on to history in the town. So
And we have an incredible example of that with the Slater Museum.
Yep.
That Mr. Robert has put together virtually, well, not single-handedly, but funded.
Sure.
Single-handedly. And I assume the commission would work, with him and his organization to help spread the historical news.
We're open and we're ready to move, and like I said, once we can get our game plan in order, which we're hoping to do the end of this month, and then get some funding, by the fall, we should be in really good shape. And obviously looking for a couple of more members, so anyone in the community who has an interest in preserving the history of the town, please submit. The applications are online, easy to get to, and they go right through the town administrator's office.
Oh, and Doug can certainly advertise that.
Yeah.
On our billboards, just the June 27th, Saturday 9 to 11,
Yep.
just to get generate some additional interest.
Yep, would love to have.
As the previous
people to-
speaker was mentioning your name, who you were sitting behind her, I'll mention the same.
Exactly.
So
And
Ted,
she'll shoot me later for it.
were you saying that we have 40-year graffiti in town? Is that?
Well, I wouldn't go that far. It might be actually some older. I still can see the Coca-Cola.
Coca-
I can
Yeah,
see the
You're right.
Coca-Cola sign.
That's got to be a long, long time
That
ago.
needs to be redone.
Yeah.
A long time ago.
Yeah. Actually, so there was an effort just a few months ago to get that repainted, but
Okay.
And I reached out to Coca-Cola, and it's like, hey, this is a great advertising opportunity for you. Will you help pay for it? And they're like, you can do it, but no, we're not paying for it.
How about if you let them know that we'll put Polar over there?
Yeah, over it, yeah.
That might actually get them to pay for it.
So that's a start for us, and we're pretty excited about getting started on the commission and getting it back into business again. The reason I was here tonight, though, basically is for a tercentenary sign that you may be aware of that's at the corner of Birch Island Road and Thompson Road. It's that little sign tucked under the power lines that no one can see and no one can get to. We were looking at that as a renovation project because if you've seen the sign, and we tried to put a couple of articles in the local papers recently to bring people's awareness of it.
The Praying Indian by Birch Island, Thompson Road? That's the sign?
That's the
Is
sign.
that the sign that's in the wrong location?
That's the one.
Possibly in the wrong location?
No, there's no doubt it's in the wrong location. But we were looking to renovate it. It's getting rusty and it's getting cracked and it's deteriorating. The state has money available to either restore or replace it. And we have been in contact with them, and they will get back to us. Right now, monies are not available, but when they are, we're on the list. And so that was our main concern. The second one, though, was, geez, the sign, as we know, and if you look at any historical data regarding it, even going back to when they put it there in 1930, they kind of knew it was in the wrong place back then. The idea of it was to locate the praying town of 1672, 1674, that was started by a fellow by the name of Eliot. And the location appears to be the northern end of the lake, is how they described it, which would put it up in back of Minebrook somewhere. Which either is where 395 is now, or where the power lines are that go up. Either way, not a conducive place to put a sign, if you want people to actually see it and observe it and be interested in it. The reason I think they put it at the corner of Birch Island is because back in the day, in the 1600s, where there were no roads, the travel way actually to get from Boston to Hartford, Springfield, and further was through Webster. And rather than go around the lake, they went right down Kildare Island and right through the Narrows. They crossed the Narrows, Birch Island Road, and then out west to whether they're going south to Norwich, west to Hartford, or, Connecticut River. And the lake was always kind of a halfway point, so it was marked that way. This was the halfway point between the ocean and the Great Falls, they called it, of the Connecticut River, and Webster Lake, Chemalangamog, right in the middle. So I think they put it on that corner for that reason. Is it located a travel area back then of where people traveled to get from one
Was there
area to the
also
next.
there was also talk as a kid growing up that there was an Indian burial ground somewhere in that area?
There
I don't know if
is.
that was just lore.
Right. I actually spoke with a member of the Nipmucks, and he indicated that, yes, in back of the tire store, when they were building the highway, they knew there was a burial ground there. And I guess they started digging it up, and I don't know how they got
Excuse
to
me, Ted,
even
I'm just gonna, I
preserve
think
it.
you can eliminate the Zoom at this point. Doug,
Yeah.
right? No one else will be joining us by Zoom. Courtney, no one's,
Your mouse is there.
okay.
It's in the upper corner.
Sorry, Ted, we're seeing the screen flash at us.
Okay, sorry, go ahead.
Thank you. So Indian burial ground,
Anyway, yes, I think, and some people think that might be why they spotted it there, but it really doesn't pertain to a burial ground. And there was multiple Indian burial grounds, really, in the community. That's not the only one. So I don't think it was put there for that reason, and it certainly doesn't indicate that on the sign. So bottom line is, we're looking to move it. And we think a great location is Memorial Beach. the renovation that's gone on there has been fantastic, as we all know, and it continues to grow. And we did go down there with Cal, kind of spotted some areas that might be an appropriate place. I think we've come up with one where we could relocate it. I think we could get the highway department to assist us with the relocation and maybe, build a nice little area that would be appropriate and respectful for the sign and what it stands for. The sign originally put there is now under the umbrella of the Department of Transportation, believe it or not, because it's a road sign. So we contacted them, and through their people, they indicated they have no issues with relocating it to the Memorial Beach area. So I wanted to come here and let you know that, that's our plan, with your blessing, to move forward with that. We don't have any concrete plans yet, but knowing that everybody is in agreement with doing that, we would like to begin that process.
Yeah, I think the only thing that comes to mind is make sure that you've had the conversations with the Veterans Organization in deference to the fact that Memorial Beach is designated to the veterans.
Yep.
That would be, anyone else have any other questions or
That-
concerns?
That would be my concern as well, just to make sure you work with the veterans.
Sure.
Ted, would you spoil anything if you told us where you're thinking of putting it?
There's several areas. You can put it along the driveway
Yeah.
that goes there as kind of a road sign, but we thought it might be more appropriate somewhere outside the parking lot, just as you enter the beach, when you walk in. I mean, there is an area there that's kind of empty right now. I'm not talking about a huge, it's a sign. You might need a, 12 by 12 block of space.
Yeah, it's roughly a 3 or 4 by 4 type size sign, as I
Yeah.
remember.
Yeah. So it wouldn't be a huge hindrance, I think, to anything that's going on down there. But, once we've gotten the okays, I think then we could start to look, towards where exactly do we want to place it, how do we want to do it, what do we want to do with it. And we'd like to do it sooner probably than later, even though it might not be restored or replaced. We think sooner rather than later, now that the beach is up and running and looks so great, and attracting more and more.
You'll be looking for grant money, though, or town money?
Well, we did actually
To fix the sign.
sneak some money into the budget to, I think it was like $3,000 or $5,000,
Yeah.
which I don't think would cost us much more than that to move it and establish a little, presentation there. So, that's our plan.
Anyone, I don't think we need a vote, but anyone have any other concerns or questions on it? So you'll work with your committee, the
Yes.
commission, to
We will
come up
speak
a
with the
sign, and
veterans.
Carol
I
and-
have been speaking with the veterans. I spoke with them today, just so you'll know that observation station has been a topic of interest up at the athletic field. You know, the one
Yeah.
we're talking about, the
Had
little
several
shed in
people
the back
approach
of
me on
the
that one.
baseball stands. I know there's talk about what we can do with that. There was a group that looked like veterans were going to get organized and do it, and then it kind of fell apart. So, I spoke with the veterans agent today, and he's all for doing something there, and he's going to gather, he doesn't know exactly what veterans group it actually falls under. He's a veterans agent, but there are so many veterans groups in town. So I think we may have a powwow
pun
between the
intended.
groups. And also, we do actually have a living member who actually manned that station at one time. For those of you old Bartlett grads, Mr. Norman Deptula was actually a member, and I don't know exactly what branch he was in, but he actually at one time manned that station.
I think he's Army, if I remember his uniform.
I think he's Army,
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great.
So he is also going to be invited. I think what we would be looking to do there is possibly replace, we'd be looking for grant monies, let the veterans go out there. Many organizations out there that give grant money. I'm sure the town would be willing to share some of that. I don't think it's a great cost. It's a 12 by 12 shed, basically. You were to build it brand new, what, $5,000 to $10,000? I mean, we wouldn't even have to put it out to bid, I think, for the amount of money
Yeah,
that
with
it
an
would cost to
appropriate
do it.
plaque.
And there are, you know, volunteer organizations and volunteer contractors maybe who would be willing to give time if we were to produce the supplies. I don't know, but
Well, and Bay Path's done
multiple
well by
things we
us
can do.
with the pavilion.
Yeah, that was, the group that Ted was talking about that kind of fell apart, their plan was to have Bay Path come and do it, but a little bit of, would it survive a move? Would it,
Yeah,
Which
the
it probably
original
wouldn't.
plan was to pick it up and move it and rebuild it and bring it back, but I don't think it would stand any kind of a movement. It's in pretty bad shape.
today's rain, I'm surprised it's still up.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, just to complete the conversation on the praying Indian sign, is
Sure.
everyone okay with, the plan? Ted's going to be talking to all the appropriate people and move it as soon as possible, and then have it renovated, the sign itself.
Yeah, I think we'll clear it with the veterans and make sure that they're okay with it, but as long as we've got everybody's, approval, let's move forward and let's take care of it.
Great.
Be nice to put it in a place where people can actually see it,
Yeah,
And appreciate,
other than driving by it.
and most people wouldn't see it. I happen to live near there, so I remember seeing it all the time.
I read the article, so
All right, any other questions for Ted on the Historical Commission? Thank you for the work and your future work with the commission as well.
yeah, thanks, looking forward to it.
Yes, thank you.
Right, and next we have the Cable Advisory. We have, the contract was copied for us in our package, and of course, we know that this is, I think it was October of '23 is when the contract will expire, and, maybe we just want to reference a little bit, Ted, as to why we have it in front of us now.
Well, sitting here as an old member of the Cable Advisory Committee.
I'm
which
sorry, this
I-
is on page 32 of our package.
Yeah, which I was on when I was, the business officer for the school department, and we were, looking for ways to use some of the monies that, were provided through the contract to assist not only with here, which I know we did a lot of work in this building through those funds, but the school department as well. So I know that we have a very small committee. Right now, I think it's only me and Greg.
Oh, what's his name? Someone else, but
Right,
they're.
but it's kind of inactive at this
Yeah, yeah.
point. But I did get a verbal agreement from the business manager at the school department, so, kind of twisted
hook
the arm
one
a
ache.
little bit, but, where the school also stands to benefit from a new contract, I think that she's more than happy to serve on the committee, and she'll be forwarding a letter. I think it's board approval
It
for
is.
members on that committee. I don't know, you got a letter back in September addressed to the chairman of the board.
Yeah, it's April 7th of '21. Well, it's in our package here, talking about the town should start planning for this, even though it's in
Okay.
2023.
Yeah.
Okay,
And the charter had sent a letter earlier to us with the exact same thing, like, yeah, if this is gonna be long and drawn out, we should start now.
yeah. Well, I mean, there's two I don't know if you've read it, it does advise that you form a cable advisory committee, which we already have, and hopefully we can get a few more members. I might even suggest that a member of the board might want to sit on that, at least for the purpose of contract negotiation. I think it would be appropriate. Or
Hopefully,
your designee.
hopefully we won't have to twist any arms.
And then it gives you a practical guide, and there's two ways. There's a formal way to do it, which is very long and very drawn out, and if you're going to do the formal negotiations, you better have started now for October of 2023, basically, is what they're saying. And we can do that. We could have a member of the state come down who is willing to go through it. We also could have, the cable company come in and also be there to provide information and go through it. They call it, phase one is ascertainment, when you go through the whole process of gathering information. You might have some open meetings, hold public hearings, conduct municipal-wide surveys, meet with community organizations, renew the financial forms of the provider. It's a long process. And then there's the Reader's Digest version, which basically says informal negotiations. If you're happy with your provider in the services that they provided and with their contract, and just negotiating possibly the fees that are involved with them and the town, then you can go right into it. If you've got a good working relationship with the cable operator, there are no compliance issues, the parties are not required to follow that formal process, and they can just get together and negotiate the contract. So-
Yeah, I think when I read this, there's certain fees that come back to the town. There's that 50 cent per subscriber as of December 31st. That does not appear to have changed with regards to legislation. There's the $100,000 in there. That's probably something that's negotiable. The two concerns, I think, after reading this that I would have is, there's been, a lot of talk about, well, why don't we have Verizon Fios in town? And that's a question that I think that a cable advisory committee should try and answer, because that's a question that I get asked oftentimes from members of the public. And then secondly, I think we somehow need to have that public hearing aspect, just to gauge the public and see how, in fact, they feel about the service they're getting. I mean, I personally have, no particular complaints about it, but I think it's a good idea to open it up to the public, because this is a 10-year contract. It's the only kind of game in town, so to say, right now, and perhaps the one thing that the Cable Advisory Committee needs to do is make that phone call to Verizon. I'm not sure who. I have friends who work there. I could probably try and find out who, but I think we probably owe it as members representing the town to at least ask that question. Could be that, we wouldn't have access to Fios for 10 years. Could be that everyone's very comfortable with our current cable. And the technology, as I read, is changing dramatically. For instance, for Fios, they're going to wireless hubs. You won't be having hard connections between telephone poles and houses. They plan on, this is stuff that's been divulged in Verizon's public documents, that they'll be putting little miniature hubs up on telephone poles, and that would service a neighborhood of, I don't know how many people, how many households. But I think, if we're going to go through this, it's probably incumbent, in my opinion, and certainly open up to the discussion here, from what I've read.
I agree that, this contract is 8 years old. It'll be 10 years old by the time we look at a new contract for another 10 years. And I think the communications in the world has changed from 8 years ago, and will change significantly in the next 12 years as we, move forward. And in reading this contract, it seemed to me the focus was on public access and cable TV, where internet seems to be hardly mentioned in there. And to me, internet is the biggest part of the package now. And I think, the commission should assess where internet-wise this contract looks moving forward.
Well, my understanding is the internet not a separate contract? Doug, don't you have a contract with Charter for internet service?
We don't have a contract with Charter, so
I thought it was all in one, but
Because I thought this was specifically for cable television.
so the contract is to develop a fee structure that we receive, and for us providing PEG access, Public Educational Government Channel access. So, I mean, that's the specific purpose of the contract. Can we, in this process, try to improve either the service of Charter or, I don't think we can't force another provider to come in by any means, but we could certainly invite and let them know we are open to it.
Right, and that section specifically deals in that Section 13, community programming.
Yeah.
But there are, there's many different, obviously, clauses in here dealing with penalty provisions. If cable is out for a specified period of time, then there's a credit that's due. There's monies that go to the school, there's monies that go to the town. We know, because we've got the equipment here to show, that we can use those funds to provide better access for our meetings and access for the school.
Yeah,
to
but I think
use.
performance of the system via, i.e. internet, is an issue that
Yeah,
I see a problem, and I don't see that.
And it wasn't
really-
specifically mentioned in here, and probably because, 8 years ago, it wasn't
Well, that's what I'm saying.
necessary.
Well, not
I think Ted was
necessarily.
right, though.
I-
If you take a look at the name of the agreement, it's renewal cable television license. That's all it says, but I think it's a good opportunity to open it up to other media.
Right.
I mean, I can tell you that the school department has a contract for internet service with Charter. It's got nothing to do with cable TV.
I mean,
And it was
if we're
something that was
creating a new
negotiated.
contract, though.
No,
I
and
think-
perhaps it's time we talk about integrating, the two because of the importance. And it wasn't, there's no such thing in the definitions as internet defined. It's not a term.
one thing as we negotiate this, I mean, people have been cutting the cords, and I think that's going to continue to happen, so we should just kind of be cognizant, wherever we negotiate, there's going to be fewer and fewer subscribers, so over the next 10 years, those probably are going to decrease each year. They've been fairly consistent, but I wouldn't ever expect them to go up.
Right, and I think one of the things that I didn't see in here was there's no prohibition in here of us negotiating with another carrier, which is good, because if Verizon comes knocking on the door and wants to come into the town of Webster, we definitely would want to have the advisory board talk to them.
And we charge them the same 50 cents per subscriber.
Well, that's by statute, yeah.
Well, I mean, with the formal process, there is an RFP that would go out. So you would have to put together a request for proposal if you wanted to get other entities to bid.
Yeah, and my understanding is to bring in that infrastructure is the key issue.
Absolutely.
So you'll probably get no response with an RFP. But, I think it's important to understand what the process is. It sounds, based on the conversation, as though that Reader's Digest version may not be the way we can go, but, I'll leave that up to the commission, and I think we should, have someone from the Board of Selectmen, one of the selectmen or a designee, certainly as part of that committee. And probably some member of the public as well. Why don't we take that up as an agenda item for ourselves, maybe at our next meeting?
Okay,
We can talk a little further about it. Definitely.
sounds good.
All right. Thank you,
All
Ted.
set? Yeah, thanks for
Ted.
having me.
You.
Is that okay, Cory?
The only thing we didn't touch on, Ted, was your moderator hat, so.
We're looking forward to a live meeting in the auditorium next time.
Amen. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is request to approve the 2021 Web Sailing Association race schedule as proposed. This is on page 59 of our package, of our PDF. It looks like it's pretty straightforward. We do this every year. The Sailing Association requests a certain number of days. They're listed in here. They've gone through the police chief, and he's signed off on this. Doug or Courtney, I'm assuming we have no
We don't
issues
have
with it
any
here?
issues, so we would recommend approval.
Okay. Any questions from the board?
Seems pretty straightforward.
Yeah, and the races are listed on page 63, the race days. And it looks like it's pretty much the same as was done in maybe 2 years ago, because COVID hit last year. If there's no questions, I guess I'd entertain a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Go ahead. Second.
Second. Motion and a second. Any discussion? Courtney, would you poll the board, please?
Selectman Claiborne?
Yes.
Selectman Contos?
Yes.
Selectman DeBoer?
Yes.
Selectman Zolda?
Yes.
Chairman Becker?
Yes. Next item is the request to approve and support the language of HD 1922, an act authorizing certain members of the Webster Fire Department to buy back eligible retirement service time as filed in the 192nd session of the legislature. Doug, I understand this is for a couple of fire department employees that were part of the rescue squad, which was not part of the fire department back when they were working on the rescue squad.
Right, so if this were to be approved by the legislature, it would allow those two employees to buy back their time. So in a way, they're funding the system, and so it's not a burden to the town at all, so I would recommend, I don't see any reason not to do it.
And this, the note is on page 64, along with the language, the bill language, through page 68. And I think all we really need to do here is, if we're okay with this, is just to recommend approval.
Yep.
And we would write a letter of support, Doug? That either you would sign
I
or-
would send it to the representative, yes.
Okay, that we've approved and support this.
Mhm.
Any questions from the board? If not, I guess I'd entertain a motion to approve of the bill and support, for approval and support of the bill.
I make a motion to approve HD 1922, to authorize certain members of the Webster Fire Department to buy back eligible retirement service time as filed in the 192nd session of the legislature.
Second.
We have a motion and a second, and if we can just amend the language to say approve and support.
And support, yeah.
Okay, that's okay. Any further discussion? Courtney, would you poll the board, please?
Selectman Claiborne?
Yes.
Selectman Contos?
Yes.
Selectman DeBoer?
Yes.
Selectman Zolda?
Abstain.
Chairman Becker?
Yes.
And just for the record, I'm abstaining because it pertains to a relative of mine,
So
as one of
we'll-
the firefighters.
We'll note in the record that that's a recusal as well,
Yes.
from the conversation. Okay, thank you. Next item is the intermunicipal agreement for local public health service. Again, here, this is on page 69, and Doug, can you just walk us through?
Yeah, so Tom mentioned earlier CMRPC, which is the Central Mass Regional Planning Commission. So they have applied for a grant through the state for public health services. And the town of Webster would be the host community. And basically what we would be doing is hiring a health inspector to go around and provide all inspections that are needed in town. That could range from restaurants to salons to Title V, anything that a Board of Health would be providing. There'd be one position to do that, and there'd be a separate position which would be kind of a public health generalist. So they would promote good public health measures. Maybe that's tobacco cessation programs, or maybe it's get the flu shot, things like that. So this grant would pay for those two positions for 3 years. And this is a grant that would be renewable, and it is a very, very high probability that this grant would continue even beyond the 3 years. So what we're looking for is to the board to approve us being the host community. I think we have advantages being the host community. We control the employees' time and where they go. So if no one else is asking for it, they can spend more time on projects here in Webster. But it would be a great resource. Actually, it would even save us some money, because right now, many of our inspections, we hire a contractor to do that, and so that would save us from having to pay that contractor as well.
So Doug, from a budget standpoint, this is obviously 7 towns. So does Webster front the $100,000 a year, or does it just come in and pay?
It just comes in.
They pay directly for,
Yep.
we just provide the office space?
Yep.
How about cars, transportation, is that something?
That's all built into the grant. For those things, for capital purchases, we would request it beforehand, and they'd provide the funding for us. For the actual payroll, they'd give us the money in an account, and we just pay directly from that fund.
So it doesn't come through the town's financial
It would.
statements, or?
It would go through our payroll system and our financial management system.
So they then on our health insurance and retirement and,
So they are, but those are all picked up through the grant.
So Webster doesn't have to pay anything?
Right.
so it's not just the salary, it's the expense
Everything
of an employee?
associated with the positions are covered through the grant.
So would that be similar to how we would sign the warrants for, say, Carol Sear with the Office of Community Development?
A similar idea.
Okay.
I mean, the board wouldn't actually have to approve these
Okay.
payrolls. But yeah, every cost associated is being picked up by the grant.
And that's 300,000 per
For-
year, for 3 years?
I think it's, yeah. I'd have to
It says we'll be
double check.
receiving a 3-year grant with an annual award
Of
of 300,000.
Okay.
So it's 300,000 per year. Because that, I, like many of you, were thinking, how on earth are you going to pay 2 people salary and benefits
For three.
Yeah,
for
yeah,
100,000 a year?
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm thinking.
Yeah. So it's, just to be clear, it's a 3-year grant with an annual award of $300,000,
All right, so you're 150,000 per individual, roughly,
including all benefits.
in all benefits and whatnot.
Doug, how, can
That
you,
would be salary, no?
So, yeah, the salaries, the range is.
55 to 75 each,
Right.
65 to 75 each.
plus the
Benefits.
benefits and
Plus
insurance and
expenses.
retirement. yeah.
and expenses? So Doug, how would this impact our current, Jen, for instance, in our health department? It would take some, obviously, work off of her desk.
Yeah, it would. So she would, right now, if a call for an inspection comes in, she does certain ones and we have a contractor that does certain other ones. So instead of calling the contractor, she'd coordinate with this employee to get those inspections done. As far as the public health kind of specialist, they would just work closely together and say, this is a need in our community. Can you, work on improving this need? So maybe it's flavored tobacco. They can work and see what other communities are doing and take best practices from somewhere else and bring them here. The idea is that there would be a lot of efficiencies because they could do a similar thing in all 7 different communities and learn from each other.
I think, to me, the only drawback is there's 7 towns, so there's going to be a lot of people pulling, to get
Quite a
service
distance.
from these 2 people, but, that's all to be worked out.
So are we responsible for managing that overall schedule? Does that fall within us?
Would be Jen's responsibility, yes.
So there'll have to be some sort of system for those demands to come in and those requests to be managed?
Yep, so we haven't finalized everything yet, but it's like basically every other week you would have a person for a day and the inspections would all be scheduled for that day. And
In
you
that,
just,
in that town.
in that town. So whatever, I forget one of the communities, Auburn, would be the second Tuesday, second and fourth Tuesdays. So they would just coordinate and get all of their inspections scheduled on those days.
And Doug, with that, and I think what we're trying to get to is another, I'll call it burden, another responsibility of Jen. Would that fall more on Jen, or would it fall on the person that we're hiring and the other person to do that scheduling? Because that can be a
There's a
lot
lot
of
of
work.
scheduling. Yeah. Jen will have oversight over these 2, but they will be working fairly independently because it is for 7 different communities and they have to answer to 7 different boards of health.
Is there any type of tool that they're going to give to manage this, or?
There are specific programs for managing inspections especially, and that is something that the grant would look into purchasing, and that each of the 7 communities would use the same program, have the same tablet where they can go into each community and have the same process for managing inspections.
Is this contingent on all 7 towns signing on, or?
So all 7 towns have, in theory, approved it. So the grant money has been approved. So
Yeah,
if,
yeah,
if
yeah.
if a town were to back out, I don't see it changing at all.
Well, the only benefit would be we'd
Yeah,
be
well,
one of
one
6
person.
instead of one of
Yeah.
7.
Right,
Are these contiguous towns?
no.
No, they're a little spread out.
Wales
Right up
is
here,
one.
Wales,
Oh, yeah,
Brimfield.
okay.
And that was a concern with travel, if they're coming from here, I want to make sure that we're not providing the car.
Right, right.
Right.
And if, you know, they're being reimbursed through the grant for their travel, not
Right.
the town.
Yeah.
I
Do you
think it's a
see-
great thing. It's just we have to figure out, you know, these folks that come in, that's a lot of detail and a lot of I'll say mouths to feed when you're dealing with 7 towns.
Do you see that the alleviation of things that Jen does versus what she would have to do as coordination is a wash, or?
I think it will free up more of Jen's time.
Oh, okay.
And I tease her like, well, what are you going to do now? You have employees doing all the work for you. But yeah, it will free up her time, and she can focus more on setting the policy, and then the generalist person can help implement that.
So in a way, Doug, this will create money for us, because we're not paying, for our own town, we're not paying for that third-party vendor to do the inspections.
Yes.
These new people will be doing the inspections, and we'll still keep the fee.
Right,
So we'll have the revenue, but not have an expense
Yeah.
associated with it.
And that's not insignificant. I think it was like $26,000.
And it will save Jen time on those, but it may create a bit of a burden. You just want to make sure that it doesn't create too much of a burden in the oversight.
Right, and, I mean, we're host community for other things, and, I don't think it'll be a problem. And if it were to get to a point where like, this is a little too much, we can certainly try to share it with another community as well.
Okay, so we actually have an agreement here.
Yeah, so I think
packet.
it has a signature line for the chair of the board, if, you want to make that motion.
So what we're looking for is a motion to approve the intermunicipal agreement as described as provided in our documents.
So moved.
Second.
Motion is second. Any further discussion? And Doug, you will record in the minutes that you're obviously recommending this.
Yeah.
The only question I had is there's just one of those blank spaces in there. Do we fill in that date afterwards about the hiring process? There's some gaps in there.
Yeah, so we are in the midst of coordinating with all 7 towns on putting together a job description. So we hope to get it advertised to be filled around the beginning of the fiscal year, July 1st.
Okay.
Just, I know we haven't taken our vote yet, but a question, do we have to get permission from all the towns, or are we just hiring the people? In other words, do 7 towns, boards of health have to say, yes, I want person A and person B?
So they are developing a hiring committee, so it'll be like 3 people that will interview and select.
Any further questions on the IMA approval? If not, Courtney, would you poll the board, please?
Selectman Claiborne?
Yes.
Selectman Contos?
Yes.
Selectman DeBoer?
Yes.
Selectman Jolda?
Yes.
Chairman Becker?
Yes. All right, next item is request to approve the change of manager application submitted by the Booster Athletic Club of Webster. This is on page 88 of our PDF. Courtney, assuming everything in here is
The only thing they're missing is their quarry, and they're gonna drop it off tomorrow.
So otherwise, we have all the information we need, and subject to the quarry, all that paperwork is in place. Any questions on this? This is a fairly routine matter.
I'll make a motion with the exception of the Corey to accept the request to change management of the Booster Athletic Club in Webster.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve the change of manager application for the Booster Athletic Club. Any further questions?
Just to clarify, Earl, that's subject to them
Subject to-
providing
subject to- yes.
providing the core,
The quarry.
required quarry form.
Subject to an acceptable quarry coming back. Okay, we'll include that in the motion. Any further questions? Courtney, would you poll the board, please?
Selectman Claiborne?
Yes.
Selectman Contos?
Yes.
Selectman Goulart?
Yes.
Selectman Zolber?
Yes.
Chairman Becker?
Yes. Next item, request to approve an entertainment license for Divine Arcade and Activities on Wheels, Alexis Aja Divine, page 93 of our document. We have before us and had an opportunity to look at the business plan. Doug, you want to just talk a little bit about this? I mean, it's a very novel idea.
Yeah, so, right, it's a novel idea. She would like to basically run arcade out of a kind of the back of a box truck, box van. So she came in to see if there would, if Webster would be supportive of an idea. We are. One of the things that we have been successful at is having small businesses start at like a food truck and be able to move into a real brick and mortar place. That's kind of what we're hoping might happen here, is that she'll get her start as a mobile truck, and if it's successful, it could be potentially move into like the downtown area or somewhere else that would help support the business environment in town.
Yeah, I was surprised that you could only put basically two people in at a time, and I wasn't sure, I didn't see any costs in there for internet access, but that's up to the proprietor to figure all that out.
Yeah, and one of the things we'd have to work with them is where are they gonna park this? Right, so,
Is it going to be on the side of a street, in front of a business?
right, yeah, so those things are still to be worked out with them when they finalize what their operations are gonna be.
So they would have to seek, if they were coming to like the library parking lot or the beach or some town-owned property, they would still have to seek approval for that
Yeah.
through you or?
Yep. And if they were on any public road as well, so
Yeah.
if they were just taking a parking spot in front of a business, that would also need to be approved.
Do they need any kind of license?
Just this entertainment
Just the
license.
The entertainment,
As far as the parking, you
as
mean?
far as parking and...
If they'd have to get approval from the town, from me. We don't have a specific license for that, but.
You know, I would think, you know, Doug, if it's on Main Street, it might be something you'd ask the police chief about and say, is this going to create
Yeah.
a safety concern?
Yep.
It's certainly the first one that I think we're aware of like this. And I congratulate the proprietor for their ingenuity.
Yeah.
And wish them well. Any further questions? So this is to grant an entertainment license.
I'll make a motion to approve entertainment license for Divine Arcade and Activities on Wheels.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Courtney, would you poll the board, please?
Selectman Claiborne?
Yes.
Selectman Contos?
Yes.
Selectman Goulart?
Yes.
Selectman Zolber?
Yes.
Chairman Becker?
Yes. Our next item on the agenda, we have dealt with the temporary remote work policy. So the next item after that is request to approve one-day liquor license request for Kildare Island Annual Block Party, August 7th, 2021. I could not find that. Maybe I just went through my PDF too fast.
I didn't see it either.
I couldn't find it in the PDF.
It was just a short email, and I think for some reason it was excluded from the packet. It was,
Well, there is an email from Ray Belcito.
That's a different,
Oh.
yeah, that's a
Oh,
different one.
oh.
So this one, I know when Doug and I met with Andrew to go through the agenda, we looked at this, and it was something that they've done every year, other than last year. And we talked about, you know, whether or not they needed to have a police representative, and didn't think that was the case, the way they were blocking it off. So my apologies for, you know, you all not seeing that. I know, but Andrew and I, in our pre-meeting for approving the agenda, went through this. And Courtney, you've received all the appropriate documents?
yeah, we have been in touch with the police department, and they are requiring police detail.
Okay.
Yeah. And
That was the
from
one
what they
question we
said, they require a police detail every year.
They do, okay. That was one of the questions that came up on
The
this.
highway department has provided like sawhorses to block off the road.
And just, you know, as an aside, one of the things that I thought would be good to do is, with Andrew as vice chair, myself as chair, when we're going through the agenda, I used to just meet with Doug and Courtney, but I think, you know, just from a continuity standpoint, and it was a good idea to have the chair and the vice chair. We're not, you know, breaking any rules with regards to open meeting law, because there's only the two of us. and we get the benefit of Andrew's very large base of knowledge over the many years he's been here, so. Any other questions on the Killer Island one-day liquor license? If not, I'd accept a motion to approve the one-day liquor license.
Make a motion to approve the one-day liquor license request for Kildare Island Annual Block Party.
Second?
A motion and a second. Further discussion? Courtney, would you pull the board, please?
Selectman Claiborne?
Yes.
Selectman Conjos?
Yes.
Selectman Ford?
Yes.
Selectman Jordan?
Yes.
Chairman Beck?
Yes. Next item, request to authorize outdoor seating until the end of the calendar year 2021, as was authorized under the state of emergency COVID-19 guidelines. We don't have any information on this. This was a discussion that, again, we had with Doug. As we know, this is now going to end, and we would probably have to do something locally. So Doug, if you could maybe talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so there was an act to have certain provisions that were in place during COVID to have them extend beyond June 15th. One of those was using Zoom for public meetings, and then it was the outdoor dining. So the legislature met, I guess they recessed today without making a final decision. So there is no, nothing in place at the state level to allow outdoor dining after tomorrow in certain areas. So when we approved this last year, we met with the planning and the town planner and the building commissioner and came up with the process to approve outdoor dining in certain areas, specifically in parking lots. So what I'm asking the board to do is to allow us to continue to do that for the rest of this calendar year. And then we will have a more formal process that would likely require site plan review from the planning board for anyone that wants to have outdoor dining in the future. So like there's a couple of restaurants that have tents in the parking lots. They reached out to me and they asked, what's going to happen on June 15th? And I said, I would recommend to the board that we allow them to continue for the rest of the summer because they have made an investment in that, and restaurants had a difficult year, and I think it would be appropriate to let them continue to do outdoor dining.
And that, Doug, is within the scope of our authority to
Yeah.
do as the local licensing
Yes.
authority. And I know that one of the concerns when we first allowed for this was to make sure people were safe. So part of what I think, Ted and you have gone through is to make sure that if people, lose control of their car in a parking lot, there's going to be barricades there to stop that car and not go through the tent with people in it.
So are you looking through the end of the summer or the end of the year?
Yeah, I said end of the calendar year. They most likely all close up in October or maybe even earlier.
And when would this review on a future plan occur?
Yeah, so we developed the guidelines and have them in place for next spring, like in February, so they
Okay.
could apply at that point.
So this would provide ample opportunity, at least 4 months from year end December 31st through April
Yeah.
to see if we can do this again.
Right. So the big concern is some of these are in their parking lot, which take up parking spaces. So you got to balance, well, where are your patrons going to park now if they can't park in these spots? So, and there are certain ratios that you have to have based on the square footage of your restaurant and how many parking spaces you need. So we have to double check those, make sure they would be still in line with what the restaurant's trying to do.
And that's why you need a formal review, Doug.
Yeah. Yeah. I was gonna say also, like, there's some stormwater concerns as well. It's over pavement anyway, so I don't think it makes a huge difference whether you have a tent over the pavement or not, but that is one thing that planning board has brought up.
Any further questions? I think it's a good thing for us to do in helping out these businesses who've obviously had a very rough past 15, 18 months or so.
I assume we have businesses that want to continue with this, right? They want that added capacity?
Yeah, yeah.
At least 2 that we can see in town.
Right, and I believe their intention is really only to do it for the rest of the summer. They may not even be interested in doing it next year. but they said they have already made quite a bit of an investment because originally they thought this was going through at least August.
And just to clarify, the continued approval that we're looking to give it as a board for the outdoor dining is to also include the temporary alteration of premises for service of alcohol for the restaurants that have liquor licenses for all alcohol service. Because that was one of the restaurants' concerns. I know one of the restaurant owners approached me and said, if the executive order ends and now I have the tent, I need to be able to not only serve the food outdoors, but also serve the alcohol outside in the designated dining area as well.
So we'd want to make sure, if we agree that our motion includes that, we can't, however, supersede the take-away alcohol, take-home alcohol.
Correct.
That's, that's governed by state law.
Even the alteration of premises would need to go to the ABCC, but if the board approves it, they're very likely to approve it as well.
And I do know through my conversations with Joe McKenna, he sits on the Committee for Consumer Protection and Licensure, and he did say that the state is working to extend those outdoor dining guidelines for the service of alcohol.
I think there will be an announcement tomorrow, but we can wear belts and suspenders just to make sure.
Well, if they don't have it tomorrow, then our restaurants will be okay,
Yeah.
if we agree, so. Any further discussion? Now I'll entertain a motion.
Make a motion to authorize the outdoor to extend the outdoor seating until the end of the calendar year.
And if we could, Earl, if we could include, to include the service of alcohol in the outdoor seating area.
So moved, to include this, yeah.
And-
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Courtney, would you poll the board, please?
Selectman Claiborne?
Yes.
Selectman Contos?
Yes.
Selectman Gabor?
Yes.
Selectman Zolda?
Yes.
Chairman Becker?
Yes. Next item is request to approve a Class 2 license application submitted by Belcitos Classic Cars 96 Lake Street, Webster. I know this location is the location that used to be, I remember, a lot of antique cars were worked on in there. That's the, I'm trying to think of the cross.
Dresser
the-
It's
a
Dresser
Dresser,
Street,
yeah.
across from Dresser Street.
Bush Hall, right?
Bush Hall.
So I talked with the building commissioner. We do have a little bit concerned that we don't want it to become a junk lot. And so if approved, we'll be making that clear with them. It may make sense for the board to limit it to between 4 and 6 vehicles. It is a small parking lot. So I think 4 would probably be appropriate.
Could we, Doug, could we further limit it to having 4 cars in the parking lot that are for sale? Because in other words, you don't want to have one jalopy, I'll call it,
Right.
that is going to be
being
worked
worked
on.
on, yeah.
Right, sitting in that parking lot. Because there is a building that I remember they used to work in and repair the cars in there.
Yeah.
So maybe an appropriate motion would be for 4 operational vehicles, and all vehicles being worked on must be stored in the back or indoors.
In the building.
Yeah.
And we do have that information here on page 105, the request for the license. And I will note that there was a license there for many years. I don't know how many years, but growing up, I remember there always being cars for sale there.
Yeah, it used to be an Oldsmobile dealer,
It used to be, oh, I didn't know that.
many years ago.
Any further questions? Now I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to renew to approve the Class 2 license application for 96 Lake Street with the restriction of 4 active operating cars in the outer parking area and all other cars to be in the garage.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any further discussion? Not. Courtney, would you poll the board, please?
Selectman Claiborne?
Yes.
Selectman Contos?
Yes.
Selectman Gabor?
Yes.
Selectman
Yes.
Yes. And of course, that conversation then led to the next topic on our agenda, Class 2 license holder discussion. Doug and Courtney have provided the listing on page 106 of our PDF of all the Class 2 used car, and there are a lot of them. And I think, Doug, if you want, maybe there was some concern that Ted had.
Yeah, well, basically Ted's like, well, when's it ever going to stop? Are we ever going to not approve one? His thought was maybe we, set a limit on it, or maybe we say we'll allow 3 more, and then maybe one has to go out of business before another one can reopen or can open. So kind of wanted to fill out the board, see what you thought about that idea, if we should restrict them to certain areas in town. Right now, yeah, if they were to open, they need to abide by zoning anyway, but some of them could have been pre-existing conditions. So if there are any limits the board would like to consider, I think staff is at the position where we should start considering some limits.
As I count the numbers here, there's 26, not including the most recent one.
So that makes 27, including the...
It'll make
most-
27.
We limit it to 30, make a motion to limit it to 30,
I do know,
Class 2.
through the chair, I do know, like, for some individuals, if they go to the used auto auction, sometimes they have to hold a Class 2 license to be able to bid on a vehicle, even if it's only their intention to have one vehicle on their lot, they can't attend the auto auctions. I'm not sure what percentage of the people who have the Class 2 license only have it for that sole purpose.
Do other towns have any rationale for setting a certain number?
We haven't done a lot of research on it, so it's something that we could ask and see.
I think we should have some rationale for,
Yeah, and that's a good point, Andrew, too, that maybe we could ask how many, or we could probably determine which ones are actively selling cars on their lots and see which ones might only be doing it for
Yeah, because
to purchase at an auction.
I remember that we did in the past have an agenda item where an individual was requesting the license, even though he was not planning on storing
Yeah.
more than one car at a time
Yeah.
at his location. It was because he couldn't go to the auction without having that
Yeah.
license issued.
well, maybe we could take a look at having a different type of license if they're not going to store
Class
automobiles.
2B or
Or
whatever.
maybe we put that on the application, maybe we get more clarity when they're applying for it, what their intended purpose is.
Yeah.
And then maybe back to the other point is maybe we do a survey and go out and find out and gather some more information from them.
Yeah, and Courtney, it's a state Class 2 license is a standard form, so I don't know if we can ask, but when someone comes in, we could have you
we-
answer these questionnaire and. get
We
it.
can't have our own separate sort of addendum that we could ask?
No, yeah, we could have
Okay.
a questionnaire to add to it. Yeah.
But I think if you could, just contact Dudley, which is a little smaller, but Southbridge, Oxford,
Yeah.
Auburn, and see if they have,
Yeah.
how many they have, and then see if they have a limit. There is
Yeah.
only one on here that appears to be the same address.
Yeah. I think we wanted to know if the board had an appetite for doing something, or if it just, we'll just take it as they come. But I think it would be better for the board to have an existing policy, because if you ever wanted to deny one, it would be good to have some justification behind it.
No, and I think you're putting forth concerns that Ted has as well, so. When he's reviewing these, he has to determine whether or not they have room, if they're selling cars and they're putting them for sale,
Right.
if there's enough room for them. And then I think we limit the amount of cars that can be made available for sale as well.
Yeah, when Ted reviews it, he's looking for zoning and then the space.
And did he have any specific concerns when he was talking about the limits beyond the things that he looks into here? Like, was there a specific concern about the number?
I mean, he just thought there were a lot in town already,
I'm
and,
surprised, too.
yeah, and it's like, how many should we continue to allow?
I think,
Well, if we approve this one, there'll be 27, so we'll know what numbers we have, and I guess we'll get a report back from Doug once he does some research, so, Tom, I think that's a good idea.
Yeah.
So if we can act on this particular one, I'm sorry, we've already
We
done
already-
this
yeah,
particular
yeah,
one.
so-
We'll just wait and hear back from,
Right.
from Doug on this. Next item, discussion on use of American Rescue Plan funding. I note that there's 5 minutes on here, but this could probably be hours. So Doug, I know you've sent us information starting on page 107 that runs about 15 pages long of what the government says, how much monies we've been allocated, what Tim, our accountant, town accountant Tim Bell has said. So we can just give a brief.
Yeah, so to keep it under 5 minutes, so we're going to get $5 million from this. If a transportation bill ever passes in Washington, there might be additional money, and that might have different uses as well. This has limited uses, so it can be used to help small businesses. It can be used to provide premium pay for workers that were a part of that had to work during COVID. And what is most interesting and what I think we should probably focus most on is for infrastructure, for water, sewer, stormwater. It includes broadband as well, but we don't obviously run a broadband utility. So my recommendation would be to focus most of that money in the water, sewer, and stormwater, with some still available to helping small businesses. I've been speaking with a lot of other town managers and administrators, kind of asking them what their thought process is. And they are pretty similar. So they're kind of taking this as an opportunity that this is one-time funding that will really be able to use to help the businesses in town. So like, I think it was the town of Palmer is kind of putting together a grant program where they offer a $50,000 grant if the business owner or the building owner was going to match it. So that's maybe a grant program that we could kind of copy or use, or we already have some that we've had for facade improvements that we could probably alter a little bit to meet that. None of the other communities that I talked to or that responded were planning on doing any sort of premium pay. And I kind of agree with that. I think that would be difficult for a town to administer and kind of not appropriate for like us to be administering premium pay for, say, workers at the grocery store, at some other business or restaurant that was open during COVID. So I would suggest maybe like 4 million of it, maybe 4 million plus be used for water, sewer, and stormwater infrastructure, and the rest be available for a small business loan program or grant program. But that's why we put it on the agenda, so the board can share your ideas.
I know, Doug, if you saw my, notes on this, I have red marks all over this. And the red marks indicate, for instance, if we look at page 3 of this document, so this is the actual fact sheet. So page 3, where it talks about water, sewer, broadband, access to broadband, a thought there is, do we need any help in library, or do we need any help in the senior center to make broadband, or even the beach to make broadband a little more accessible? Or are there other locations, North Village, that, I personally would like to see, those looked into, that those can help, and North Village could help in a number of these, disadvantaged areas. There's a number of these that it could touch on. There's another one in there with regards to ventilation improvements in key settings like healthcare facilities. Well, what about the senior center? Is there anything we can do in there? We have a brand-new library, anything in town hall. So what I would ask, and I've got a plethora of other red marks I won't go through now. But, there's a number of things in here that I think that we could use some of those funds, possibly Webster Food Bank is one, food, housing, and other financial insecurity under number 2. Is there something we could do there? We've had, I think, some layoffs. We should be able to reimburse ourselves for that. We've provided, I know Courtney has volunteered some of her time to work at the at the site at Harrington. So it looks like we might be able to get reimbursed for things like that. So my thought is we, identify the kind of things in here that we can actually reimburse the town for that we've done, or we can help other organizations that have gone above and beyond. Webster EMS is not owned by the town. Maybe there's something in here that can be done because they've worked so well with the town to help offset some of their COVID cost issues. That's a nonprofit that I'm not affiliated with. So, to me, if you don't mind, I was going to at least sit down with Doug, and if maybe any of us want to do the same, make some notes on here and have a conversation with Doug, and then maybe, Doug, you can come back and review those with Tim and see if some of those would make sense. And then whatever is left over, I think Earl was smiling from ear to ear when from the Webster Water and Sewer, that it might be available for that, because we can use the help there. Andrew?
And as I say, reading through the document too, some of the funding sources, I know, I'm just thinking back to the tri-board meeting that we had with the school committee and the finance committee, where they were talking about some of the early education programs that they like to get some people working for. I know we're trying to limit this money to one-time costs, if possible, but I know.
And one question is, has the school been awarded funds?
They have.
Which doesn't
Which is
show
above and
here.
beyond, okay.
Yeah, they've been, I don't know the amount, but a lot of money, so they have a grant that they were planning on using to cover the difference from what they had requested in the original budget already.
But I think it's a good point in follow-up to what Randy was saying on the broadband. Are there particular areas besides North Village that might benefit from that? That they discovered particularly during this year with everyone being at home and the challenges with some people not having access?
If they don't have them in their houses or in their apartments, perhaps this could be used as some form of a grant to allow for that, so.
I think one of the focus areas for the American Rescue Plan Act was to focus on the needy of the country, and I think, we should expand that to include the local community. And then you always have the infrastructure needs that we have in your area.
Yeah, and I think part of the idea with the infrastructure plan is I think Tim had talked about it some time ago to the board, that right now we have to borrow money and pay interest to do the infrastructure repairs, although we're raising the water and sewer rates at a level each year to allow us to sustain a fund for replacement. But this money would allow us to avoid taking out loans now, so as we get to a point where the fund grows and self-sustains, we don't have to borrow money and pay interest. So it's sort of a long-term return by saving interest.
And there's also sections in here that talked about childcare workers, educators, school staff. We have a couple of nonprofits that handle childcare. I don't know if they were hurt during this COVID situation or not. So, if I could ask if each of you could, jot down your thoughts on here, and we'll go in individually, send a note to Doug, and, maybe Doug, you can compile them with Courtney and have a conversation with Tim and see if we can come up with a plan to allocate some of these funds to where they will, as Tom said, help the neediest, if we can certainly do that.
I have asked our engineering firm for proposals for water and sewer. Their fact of the envelope estimate is about $1.5 million for water, $1.5 million for sewer that they're providing a proposal for. So one of the things we're looking at is Lake Street, because National Grid's digging it up right now, so while it's all dug up.
That's shovel ready.
Yeah.
Do we have to complete these projects by any specific time frame?
It is, so I think it is December of 2023.
And there's even a question here, Doug, about OPEB. I know you can't use it to pay down pension, but it doesn't really say anything about OPEB.
That would be a creative way.
That's one of the red marks on here. So, okay, is that acceptable to everybody? Otherwise, we could talk about this for hours.
And so we'll give feedback, and then Doug will come forward with the recommendation?
Is that fair?
Yep.
Okay. All right, next we're getting into the appointments. The next 3 agenda items deal with new appointments, correct? And the rest of them on our schedule here will be dealing mostly with
Renewals of
reappointments.
terms, yep.
So the first one is request to appoint Greg Saminsky to the Cultural Council. Doug, I'm assuming you've contacted the appropriate chairs and...
Yeah, so to be honest, I had not heard back from the chair on this one, but I have it from a good authority that Greg is a good citizen and would make a good member of the Cultural Council.
Right, any further questions on Mr. Saminsky? Sounds like we have a good recommendation from one of us. Who knows Mr. Saminsky? I'll entertain a motion.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to appoint Gregory Saminsky to the Cultural Council.
Second?
Motion is second. Any further discussion? Courtney, would you pull the board, please?
Selectman Claiborne?
Yes.
Selectman Contos?
Yes.
Selectman Gabor?
Yes.
Selectman Jolda?
Yes.
Chairman Becker?
Yes. Next item is request to appoint Scott Jejic to the Finance Committee. These are our selectmen appointments. That is a selectman appointment.
Yes. And this has been reviewed. The chair has spoken with Scott and recommends that he be approved.
Thank you. I'll entertain a motion.
I make a motion that we appoint Scott Tezick to the Finance Committee.
Second.
A motion and a second for Scott Jejic to the Finance Committee. Further discussion? Courtney, would you pull the board, please?
Selectman Claiborne?
Yes.
Selectman Contos?
Yes.
Selectman Gabor?
Yes.
Selectman Jolda?
Yes.
Chairman Becker?
Yes. Next item, request to appoint Karen Bartholomew to the Conservation Commission as an alternate.
Again, staff has spoken with Karen and recommends approval.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion if there's no further discussion.
I'll make a motion to appoint Karen Bartholomew to the Conservation Commission as an alternate.
Second?
The motion is second. Any further discussion? Courtney, would you pull the board, please?
Selectman Claiborne?
Yes.
Selectman Contos?
Yes.
Selectman Gabor?
Yes.
Selectman Jolda?
Yes.
Chairman Becker?
Yes, and the next are reappointments. I'm not sure of the pleasure of the committee. There was one, I think, change to the first name there, Doug, alternate for Jason Piatra.
Yeah, so Jason Piotr, he is looking to be reappointed as an alternate for CMRPC, but also an alternate for the planning board. So if the board could approve that tonight, that'd be great. If we run into any issues, we may have to revote it at a future meeting. But the intent was for him to be an alternate for both CMRPC and the planning board.
Okay. So we'll take that as an amendment to this. Again, I'll leave it to the pleasure of the board. Is there any other changes, Doug, to the listing that we have on our agenda?
No, we should be all set.
Rather than go through each one individually, I think because we've listed them out here, unless there are questions on any individual ones, I can entertain them.
Earl Gabor,
The only question I had was, I thought when I was appointed, it was 3 years ago, when I became a selectman, and that my expiration would be next year to coincide with my election.
yeah, so I thought the CMRPC was an annual, we had revoted it every year,
Oh,
but perhaps that's not. That's
thought
what
it
I
was.
thought.
Yeah, and Doug, if we could, we can't do this right now, but if we could put down terms on here so that we know, we'll have a record of when each of these expire.
Yeah, Earl, I think it was like every 3 years when I was...
I'm sorry?
When I was rep for CMRPC for the planning board, I think it was every 3 years.
Was it a 3-year term?
Yeah, that's what I
Okay,
thought.
so maybe we can remove Earl, so approve it without Earl, and then we will just
So I have
confirm
one
that
more
you're-
year
that
to
you
my
have one
term,
more year,
yeah.
In worst case, we'll come back and vote it at the next meeting. but because we're up against the July 1st, we'll make sure we had them all now. Any other questions or changes?
Then I know when,
Carol?
The two members of the cultural council have resigned.
Oh.
They're no longer on the committee.
So we're going to take
We'll
those two
remove
off
those,
of
yeah,
here?
yeah.
Thank you, Carol.
Anybody else resigned?
Any-
Sorry.
Any other changes to any of these?
and through the chair, I know I did ask when we were discussing the agenda for the reappointments, I know with the concerns over the last year or so with the Conservation Commission, if we were still comfortable with having Joseph Wigglesworth reappointed, since that is a selectman appointment to the Conservation Commission. I know he has a vast amount of knowledge in that area.
Yeah, and we've had multiple discussions with Joey and about the role of conservation and how it fits in the broader view of the town. I think he's coming along to maybe a more reasonable approach to how he works with developers and people who are trying to build in town. So I think with his expertise, I would still recommend that the board approve it, despite any concerns that there might have been previously.
Okay.
We can always hold that and have him come in if we want. But there is no other person at this point that's come forward and asked, as we had the previous time with another individual last year. There were two people vying for one spot. And you know, I would echo what Doug has said. I think Joey has a significant amount of knowledge, especially in the work that he does for this. And I know I've had a few conversations with him as well to try and be less detailed with applicants and not require, you know, as much interaction with the Conservation Commission. And I think that message is, you know, has gotten through, and possibly use our conservation agent more to do the work, rather than have the, you know, commission endure these, you know, 3-hour meetings every other week, and then have the applicants endure the times with them.
The question, though, is does the agent have sufficient time? It seems like being part-time to take on more responsibility is...
I think that's something that Doug will have to talk about. If we have to have, you know, more hours, we'll have to find a way to have the agent get more hours or get some help.
Actually, just maybe last week, we hired a conservation minute taker, so that would free up time, more specifically for the office staff that had been doing that. So it should make more capacity for the office as a whole.
And in specific, the
Concept.
agent?
So the person we hired is a minute taker,
Yeah.
essentially just for conservation. But that would free up time for both the agent and for the staff
okay.
person as well.
Okay.
So absent a recommendation or motion on that, I assume we'll let Mr. Wigglesworth stay on this, unless we want to take things separately on here. As I now see it, we have added the alternate for planning board for Jason Pietro. That's the first item on here. We have noted the resignation of the 2 cultural council individuals. We are removing the CMRPC delegate for Earl off of here. Are there any other changes on this schedule? I guess if not, I'd entertain a motion to approve the reappointments as I just noted.
I'll make a
moved.
motion to approve the reappointments on behalf of the Board of Selectmen expiring June 30th, 2021 for a 3-year term to expire on June 30th, 2024, as amended by So Chairman Becker?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? And Courtney,
just-
we'll
yeah.
rely on you to make sure we have it all down.
Just have a question on the Water and Sewer Commission, the two appointees. We only have 3 members on the commission, and I know ideally we're looking to rotate them so that we don't lose any 2 members at the same time. And I'm wondering if we should consider staggering these 2 appointments.
We could, yeah, because as written in the agenda, they're all for a 3-year term.
Yeah.
Because the other member was staggered, the one that
Yeah,
no longer
right,
participating.
right.
So, yeah, we could make one of them a 2-year and the other a 3-year.
Yeah, I think that would help.
We just recommend as vice chair that the person get the 2-year, and then the chair get the 3-year, or do you have a preference? Earl?
Yeah, no, I think as you just said,
Okay.
it'd be fine, yeah.
All right, so if we could,
I'll amend my original motion
okay, to include that, and
to include those changes for the Water Sewer Commission.
So one of them is a 2-year, and the rest of
The
everyone
other
on the
one is
list
a
is a
3-year.
3-year.
the vice chair will be 2 years? Right, I gotta-
Yeah, Dan.
The vice chair will be the 2-year. We'll go to June 30th of 2022. The chair will be listed as 3 years, as is on the agenda. And that was amended by Andrew, and we just need to okay the second.
I was the second, yep, second.
All right, motion and a second, and we'll, Courtney, if you pull the board, please.
Selectman Clifford?
Yes.
Selectman Contos?
Yes.
Selectman DeBoer?
Yes,
Selectman Zolda?
Yes.
Chairman Becker?
Yes. Next item is the emergency item unknown at the time of posting. Doug had sent me a note. We rarely, if ever, I think, have used this, but we are allowed by law to provide this in. This came in after the posting. So Doug, if you want to just mention this. I think we have it on, we had an attachment, actually, a
Yeah.
3-page attachment.
Yeah, so if you recall, at town meeting, I think last summer that we approved in June, there was a request to petition the state for 4 additional liquor licenses, 2 full and 2 beer and wine. So we've been working with the state to go through that process. The state has recommended, they require that they be limited in some geographical capacity. So they suggested that it be in our zoning, in our business zoning, which I think is quite appropriate. We were trying to keep it as open as possible. We sometimes hear that we put all our effort downtown, and there's other business areas in town that need some love as well. So, but I think if we keep it as a B4 district, that would allow, B4 covers all of the downtown area, all of East Main and down Thompson Road as well. So anywhere where a business is likely to open up a restaurant will be allowed to.
So this has that B4 language.
Yeah,
in
so
it.
that was their proposed change at the state level. And we participated in a hearing today with the state. At the House level, I think it will be approved. There wasn't any opposition, and no one seemed to actually even care. So I think it will eventually make it through the process and be approved.
So Doug, we simply, if we agree, we need to just approve the amended language.
Yeah.
That's included in the amendment, in the amended bill language.
Right.
I'll make a motion to approve the amended language for the Webster liquor license bill to include the restriction to B4 general business area.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any further discussion? Courtney, would you pull the board, please?
Selectman Clifford?
Yes.
Selectman Contos?
Yes.
Selectman DeBoer?
Yes,
Selectman Zolda?
Yes.
Chairman Becker?
Yes. And the last item before executive session will be the town administrator report.
So while that's getting passed around, I'll make some announcements. We have weed treatment at the lake later this week, so the beach will be closed to swimmers and boaters. To remind everyone, we're closed on Friday. It's a new state holiday. Usually I'm pretty happy to have a new holiday, but holidays cost us a lot of money, so not exactly, well, anyway, it's fine, but it is expensive.
Well, the good news is a half a day instead of a Monday for a change.
Not for the police.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
On the first, on the weed treatment, does that include lakes, the public state access?
Yeah, so they do, their two heavy areas are our beach and the lakeside.
So is
boat
it marked
access.
closed, or will it be? Or are we doing anything?
So we will coordinate, typically our highway staff has to close it off, because the state is not always responsive with that boat ramp.
So, Doug, the entire lake is closed on the day, on that particular day, correct?
Yeah.
Right, I mean,
And there's
we
restrictions on use.
Yeah, we control, where we have the ability to control access, we completely deny it.
Right. On occasion, you'll see a boat out there who may not have seen the postings on telephone poles that are out there, but if we could maybe put a note
Yeah.
on our electronic bulletin boards, that might be helpful. And the beach will be locked up, and then we'll put barricades at the
At the lakeside, yeah.
lakeside.
We are having a book sale at the library. They have an entire room, floor to ceiling with books, so lots of opportunities there. And some of these other things I mentioned in the past, so you can review those. Under public health and safety, we did have another fire on June 8th. We kind of had a lot of fires the last month, but this one was started by lightning. The fire department was able to get out there pretty quick and minimize the damage to just mostly the attic.
And I will say the homeowner was extremely thankful for the fast response, and because she was there when it was hit.
Yep. We are also working with the insurance company to tear down the other building that burnt on High Street. They did have the insurance company out there this weekend doing their final review, so I think that can come down in the next week or so, and we're working closely with them to make that happen. Under police, we are,
I'm sorry, just out of seeing the pictures and stuff, I would, certainly like to publicly thank the police who responded with ladders and the neighbors, as well as the fire department, because that one did involve a death.
yeah, and we're kind of planning on a little more formal ceremony next month, so.
Great, that's great.
But under police, I think I mentioned those two items before, and with the coronavirus, we had 5 cases last week, which is, I think, 6 weeks in a row now that we've decreased. And just to reiterate that the Armory in Southbridge, their community center there, is available for walk-ins for anyone looking for the vaccine.
Doug, question on this, and I don't know if the kids are still in school? Are they?
Yeah, until this week.
I was just wondering if the school department, if someone could coordinate, maybe Jen, and send a note to the children for their parents, because they're the ones who are looking to get vaccinated now, that this is also open.
Yeah, like for 12 and up? is
Right,
that- Yeah.
right, if we could do that. I know, I'm thankful for the 911, the reverse 911, but the more, obviously, people who can get vaccinated, the better our community will be.
Yep. Under finances, we kind of covered all that before, but if you have any questions, let me know. Economic development, we had the Mike's Crunchies and Munchies and the Studio 51 Wine Bar. Those were both officially approved with the state's vacant storefront program today. And then, like I mentioned, we have the liquor license hearing today as well. Under the infrastructure, so Lake Parkway, Claybird Ave, so that will be paved this week, Wednesday and Thursday. Then you have to let the oils kind of set, and then they'll be striping that a couple weeks after that, and they'll be finishing the aprons. So that project does look like it'll be completed end of the month, maybe first week of July. So it'll be nice to have that open and not have a detour through who knows where. It's like, that is the shortest way to get from here to there, but.
Doug, do you happen to know, with the paving, the striping, is there going to be a bike?
Yeah, so that's, it's designed to DOT's standard, which is a 6-foot bike lane. it's the shoulder of the road, so some people are like, no, that's not a bike lane, that's just the shoulder, but it will be striped, and it will have the bike markings on it as well.
Well, I'll be happy when that's done. I took a little detour the other day and then found myself in another detour, then another detour, and it took me
I heard about that.
15 minutes to get from School Street to Wakefield. I was like, whoa.
Got to drive by Earl's house, so it was a wave.
You sure it wasn't some wise guy turning the
No, I'm
signs?
telling you, literally, every corner I took, I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to turn again.
Well, remind everybody, when you look at the markings on Lake Street, that's going to be quite the project.
Yeah.
It
In the
will.
hub, in the hub
Yep.
and going up the hill.
Yes.
It's all good stuff, though. I mean, it's
Yeah,
all
yeah,
for
right,
good
right.
reasons.
It's
I
like,
mean,
yeah.
but
You gotta look
when you're not
past it.
expecting it,
It's,
And they've done a great job. I mean, it looks great, even without the, even without the final pavement
Yeah.
coating. Those
I-
sidewalks look great.
and there is a little concern that cars will go very fast down Lake Parkway, so we'll have people monitoring that.
It is I believe it's a 30-mile-an-hour road.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
but freshly paved is not always a good thing.
yeah. So South Main is the other one, so it will be milled on July 6th and 7th, and then it will be paved July 8th and 9th. So we'll let all the businesses in that area know. This past week, the water contractor has been doing all their work on East Main. They'll finish that up tomorrow. We actually postponed it. They were gonna do it Friday, but it was a big day for one of the businesses, and so we postponed that until tomorrow, which trying to help out the local business community as much as we can with all these projects. The town hall roof, I mentioned that this is going to be delayed a little bit. We're still trying to work out the final details. The architect, he wanted it perfect up there. It's like, look, no one's ever going to see this again, so we don't need to spend another $200,000. We'll just go with the $20,000 change order, not the
Doug, is
$200,000.
this up here, or does it also include over the auditorium?
It's both. So it's the cupola here, redoing the seals on above the auditorium, and covering the parapet where they think the water is getting in above the auditorium. So Hill Street, that will be closed indefinitely, and MassDOT does have it on their plan to fix that bridge over on Brandon Road in Dudley, but it is a few years out, and they don't have a plan to expedite it, so we're trying to put as much pressure on it as we can. It's Dudley's responsibility to fix the bridge now, but as most communities, Dudley doesn't have a lot of money to just put into bridges like this, so we're gonna try to work with us, Dudley and MassDOT, to try to make this happen as quickly as possible, but it will be difficult to get them to do it, because right now, the way it is set up, Dudley should be paying for it all, and I just don't see that happening very quickly.
Well, and for the public to be clear, as you're coming down Hill Street from Webster going towards Dudley, that first bridge is not the one.
Right.
It's the very small bridge right after that, as you're heading into Dudley, that kind of goes over some of the tributaries,
Right.
small streams from the French River.
Yeah.
I'm sure all of us were shocked of the no notice. And I don't know what we're going to do with regards to, sewerage trucks who pump sewer and bring it to Webster. They're going to have to find a new place to bring it to, because you can't bring it
Yes.
down that hill.
Yeah, we've talked to our hauler, and so they made some dry runs. We did change the time, so typically they can't drop off or pick up sludge until 7 a.m. So they're going to change that, and they're going to come at 6 a.m. So there's just less traffic out on the road to try to make it easier. We had to move a few stop signs because they would get hit when the sewage truck came around. So we did what we could, but this is a difficult situation and there's no good answer. I mean, Dudley got notice in late May. There hadn't been notice before that it was imminent. It is reviewed periodically, so several years ago, they knew it was certainly an issue and could have come up, but it's just a hard position for everyone to be in right now.
How would they typically pay for this, out of their highway funds?
Yeah, Chapter 90, yes.
But I mean, when the bridge was taken out over the French River by Calvary Cemetery, by the logging truck, that took years.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That'll increase traffic on Main Street, though, significantly.
Main Street and
And
A lot of
Perryville,
traffic that goes down,
and Perryville.
yeah.
yeah, so with that, Perryville is not the smoothest ride either, so Kenny is going to go out there and do what he can. The railroad company is sort of responsible for the actual crossing, that we'll try to get them to fix, but Kenny has a good relationship with them, and we'll try to make that as smooth as possible, but we'll be busy.
To Tom's point about the traffic coming here, is there a way we could put a detour sign that says detour to Perryville Road? In other words, because otherwise they'll come down School Street and hit Main Street
Yeah,
and go
that'll
that
be
way.
even-
Just to remind them that
Perryville's
the
an
alternative
option.
route is the best as far as Main Street goes. So if they could put a signage that says go left down Perryville, and then have a detour sign going over Perryville, so you don't get stuck in detour
Right.
purgatory.
Yeah, because trying to turn on to Main Street from
It's gonna be
School
awful.
Street is.
It's
tough.
already hard, yeah.
Yes.
And you don't want people going down High Street and making it even more difficult if they get stuck. You know, so I think
Because
one at the
High's
top
a
of Hill Street
one-way,
too.
right?
Right,
High's a
and you're
one-way.
forced only to go to Main Street. Like, so if you accidentally go down Hill Street,
Then
you have no choice. You're either going down High Street or you're going down, is that Cosby Street or that little turn?
Oh, yeah, it's a little side
It's
street.
like that little side street. So if you miss High Street, you have no choice but to go down and take Cosby, which is right before the auto place. And that's kind of a tight
But
corner
that's
to
not
go
even a
around.
throughway, that just
You
brings
go,
it
it
back
bring you
up.
right back to High
Right.
Street.
But then you go in this loop,
Yeah.
Right, yeah, because that's one way, again, so you have to go
right?
up the road. But even best case scenario, I mean, this is a 6-month engineer design project and then a year construction, or at least a construction season worth, so. It'll be a while.
Do we know what the situation is with the second bridge, the one closest to us? I mean, Dudley knew about their dilemma a few years ago. How do we stand with that second bridge?
And is the second bridge a state bridge, or is it
Right.
owned by both towns?
It depends on the span. We have a bridge list, so I'll double check the list, and based on the last inspection. Like I think I said earlier, based on the last inspection, our worst off bridge was on Sutton Road, with a culvert over Minebrook. So that is getting, well, right now it's in engineering, but, I'll confirm that we don't have any others that are likely
Yeah.
going to be a problem.
Well, I think to Earl's point, you don't want to be fixing that in a year and a half and then find out that that first bridge is bad and wait another year and a half or 2 years. So make sure that DOT investigates the
Both at the same
first bridge as it come from.
Right, and Tom mentioned, that first bridge is very narrow, like, if the road's gonna be closed, let's just do both maybe, and,
At the same time,
And
yeah.
as I understand,
That
they
would
do
make
inspections
sense.
every year, but they do these rating reports only every 10 years. So I think this one got closed as a result of a rating report, which is different than an annual inspection.
And another item is make sure that we look at Perryville, because if we're detouring cars down Perryville, we don't want to have a bridge there that we then,
Wasn't that
make
one just
worse.
closed?
yeah, that was,
I'm pretty sure that was just.
reopened before I came here, but
Yeah, that was
wasn't
closed down for a.
Repair?
Yeah.
Okay.
I can't remember, probably 3 years ago.
Yeah.
It was closed down for a long period of time being repaired.
If we can just confirm that, that it's not going to, all the additional flow that we're going to detour that way
Great, another.
won't create another problem.
Is there any possibility that that would not need a bridge? Because we're talking really about that before, I think it was the 54 hurricane, there was a lot of water that used to go under that bridge, and I just don't see much water going under it now.
Yeah, that's certainly an option I'm going to bring up with MassDOT, like, hey, can we,
You're
Will it be
referring, you're referring to
cheaper and faster?
the Brandon Road, the bridge,
Right.
and just build mound underneath it? and
Yeah.
Cut it off? Yeah, maybe that's a great idea.
and even, you may need a culvert, but it's going to be
Yeah.
a lot better than a bridge.
Right.
Yeah. All right, I think I talked about the water mains, but, so PFAS, I can't remember what PFAS stands for, it's poly.
Fluoro, yeah.
Yeah.
But all our wells were tested and confirmed that they are below the 20 nanograms per liter. I think our highest one was about 15.
16, yeah.
16,
Yeah.
and there isn't anything that we should suspect that it will increase over time, so that is good news. We will need to continue to monitor this. We did build in an extra amount for testing into the budget, because it'll probably be an annual test that we have to do every year. But it's great news.
That was great
Some
news.
of our other communities, nearby communities, did not have such good news.
Back on the East Main, the connections for the water projects that are pending, I noticed that somebody had received notice that they were going to shut down water last Friday, and in fact, they didn't do it till tomorrow, or?
Right. So the Rose Room on the corner, they called up the contractor and said, hey, tomorrow's our busiest day of the week. Can you not do it tomorrow? And so they helped them out, but caused a problem for someone else.
Okay. So it wasn't a bad memo, it was a
Change of plans.
Okay.
It was the waterbed theory, you push here, it's gonna bulge somewhere else.
Right.
Okay, so moving on. Lakeside's kind of been a hot button recently, so I have reached out to the state to try to ask them to put buoys in, because right now, there's swimmers and there's jet skis and they're interacting everywhere.
Doug, there were 3 jet skis on the beach, and there were swimmers in the water. So, and I know the police did a great job, they went down there, and they were ticketing cars, but that's an incident waiting to happen if they don't act very quickly.
Right.
And buoys that will not be easily removed. And I would suggest if we can, let's get that, ask the chief and see if we can get that camera system down there for a couple weeks.
That we can do.
Couple weekends.
Yes.
Yeah.
After, especially after we get that buoy system up. Hopefully that'll, gets up ASAP.
And was the state always putting those in, or was that neighbor that lived there and has
It was the
moved, is
neighbor.
not
so-
taking care of it
right,
anymore?
Exactly.
Right.
The state considers this a boat ramp for fishermen. They kind of take, divulge
Considers what,
themselves of
though?
every,
Considers what? The whole,
the whole.
the beach and the
Yeah,
launch?
They don't consider it a state
Swimming
beach.
pool, right.
Yeah.
No, but they don't consider the fact that it's been deeded a private beach?
Not so much that, their maintenance of it is serving as a ramp for fishermen.
But it is a legal deeded private use by the
So there's 2 uses to that area that's being,
state is using it as a ramp.
yeah.
And I think they're disregarding the fact that the residents who live in that area have a right to use the beach, and only the residents. So Doug, my suggestion is if they don't put it up, we have to get something up,
Yeah.
but I would, obviously, it should be their responsibility because they own it.
Yeah, right.
So we should, but if they don't, let's say in a week, if they don't have it up, we have to get something up, because it's that, I'm not concerned that someone's going to get hurt there, especially seeing 3 jet skis sitting on that beach parked.
Yeah.
And maybe they can help us with some signs that say, no boat parking, no jet skis on the beach or something. But Doug, on beach-type things, there was some discussion about a lot of trash being left at Memorial Beach. Is there any way we can maybe even hand out bags, when people come in? Because apparently people are leaving a lot of trash. And I know I went down there a week ago, it was
It was
awful.
bad. I can talk to,
We do hand out bags when we're staffed. We're not fully staffed until next week. Well, actually, this Thursday, we start going 7 days a week.
So we're in that lull period where,
During that fall period, the dumpsters there, we had trash barrels for a little while. Nothing seems to make a difference, I'll be honest with you. I don't know if you saw a picture of somebody left half-eaten ice cream cake.
the birthday cake, yeah.
10 feet away from the dumpster. I mean, there's, like I said.
well, did you keep that? I would have eaten that.
Trash, people that are not. The people that are going to are going to do it regardless, and the people that are going to take it regardless. You
Yep.
know, it is, but soon the kids will be there every day, and it'll be.
And it'll be difficult. I mean, you're a teenager. It's tough to enforce it against adults when they're screaming at you, so.
Well, and they just clean it up all day long, so, and maybe we've trained them to be bad, but,
Well,
No,
that's the whole
no, we
thing, the trash in, trash out system. People will be in the habit of it even when it is off-season. That's.
And at the risk of another sign, do we have a sign that kind of says that?
No littering sign.
Or a trash in, please remove your own trash?
It's in the rules and guidelines. I haven't had a sign made up, but I've had signs made up, please take your trash with you. Little long signs for over the off-season. They didn't do a whole lot of good, as you can see in here.
People don't read signs.
No, but if there was a sign that says trash in, trash out, and the kids are handing the trash bags to them,
I'll tell you, there's a sign up at the fields, don't bring dogs on the field, and there's dogs always on the fields.
So I guess I also wanted to acknowledge the police enforcement, because they've stepped up the enforcement on the lake. They can't be on every, 100 feet of shoreline on a lake. So if people are having issues, then they should call the police, especially on the weekends, if they see some bad things going on. But they are doing their best, once I've seen them out there.
yeah, we can hope for rainy weekends, that helps.
Yeah, the
We
heat
had one
wave
over
didn't
Memorial
help,
Day.
right?
Right,
Heat wave did
yeah,
not help.
the week before Memorial Day, when it was 90-something, that was a
Yeah.
bad weekend.
Yeah.
Well, again, there, the beach wasn't officially opened and guarded and
Right.
staffed, so. Carol, you're doing a great job on the beach with what you have.
Just one item I wanted to bring up. So we are still working on hiring a water and sewer superintendent. We had an excellent candidate that we just aren't able to negotiate a good rate, a good pay. So we do have a few other options before I get desperate, but before I go take the license test, so.
And I would offer to go to the beach, but I don't think selectmen are supposed to be doing those kind of things, walking the beach and policing. But it would be nice if people just took care of their own trash.
It's not a difficult concept. I mean, every state park does that. Any other questions?
Nope. Any questions? Otherwise, I'll entertain a motion to approve the town administrator report.
One, sorry, I just thought of this. We are meeting on Wednesday with lots of different departments to discuss future road projects and how the water and sewer and anything else, National Grid, because National Grid will continue to have work. So we're trying to coordinate that so roads only get dug up once. Lake Street's going to be hopefully our finest example that we get everything in it all at once and it's all done. Actually, on East Main, there's a sewer thing, so we're doing everything we can to get that done as well, because we got the sewer connection, we got the water connection, and now the National Grid, so we had to get that done in the next month to pave it.
Doug, do we have a moratorium on curb cuts and,
So after something's paved, it's a 5-year moratorium.
Do we have a motion?
Make a motion to approve the town administrator's report.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Courtney, would you poll the board, please?
Selectman Cleaver?
Yes.
Selectman Contos?
Yes.
Selectman Kapoor?
Yes.
Selectman Zolda?
Yes.
Chairman Becker?
Yes. Next item on the agenda is to go into executive session under item number 3 of the open meeting law, executive session, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigating position of the public body, and the chair so declares as listed on the agenda. The 6 items: Ralph v. Town of Webster et al., Boonfa Saison v. Town of Webster et al., Finnemore v. Town of Webster et al., BWC Chamberlain Pond LLC versus Planning Board, with a vote to release meeting minutes, Town versus Boisfort, 529 South Main Street, Church of the Firstborn, I won't read any more of that, versus Town of Webster et al., that's on the agenda. Those are the items to be discussed in executive session. I will entertain a motion to go into executive session, and we will come back just for purposes of closing out the meeting.
I make a motion that we go into executive session.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Further discussion? Okay. And we will be coming back into open meeting just to conclude the meeting. Courtney, would you poll the board, please?
Selectman Cleaver?
Yes.
Selectman Contos?
Yes.
Selectman Kapoor?
Yes.
Selectman Zolda?
Yes.
Chairman Becker?
Yes.